Yeah, but you do that.
Good afternoon on what I think is becoming a pretty Friday afternoon out there and a nice weekend in store soon. We have a lot of ground to cover this afternoon, and we'll be timely in this, but certainly want to give appropriate consideration to the many important things on our agenda. We had a great start to the day with our student panel. Once again, thanks to Randy Schulte and Regent Humphrey for getting that organized. Hopefully we are reviving an old tradition, if you will, and sharpening our pen and using that student participation in other ways as we move forward. So very exciting morning. Thank you very much to both of you and to our panelists. Before we move into our business, I would very much like to introduce someone who was with us this morning and participated in the panel discussion, but he is our newest board member, and that is Regent Johnny Stites from Cookeville, Tennessee. So welcome.
Nervous like Ashley was.
Oh, I doubt that because I know you've already hit the ground running. Regent Stites was with us at our recent Committee on Committees meeting. He attended a Skills USA event not too many days ago. He's had his orientation here at the central office. He will represent the 6th Congressional District. He is currently the Chief Executive Officer of J&S Construction. Johnny Stites is a modest man, and I know he would never praise himself or share the many accolades that he's received in his life with you, so I will on his behalf. He is everything you want in someone who is a community leader. Not only is he a business person of great integrity in his industry, he has been honored by his industry, receiving the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Associated General Contractors, and he is currently president of that organization in Middle Tennessee. He's active in the Cookeville Rotary, which Dr. Oldham well knows in that community, and Ashley knows is a very active club, an important club in that community. He is also active in the YMCA, in the community.
Past president, but I'm not currently active.
Okay, all right. But you have done many things for Cookeville and beyond, and certainly in your industry as well. He is a graduate of Abilene Christian University, where he has served on the board for the last 16 years. And so now we're happy that he's taking all that experience and giving his time to us here in Tennessee on our Board of Regents. In addition to being honored by the construction industry, he's also been honored by his alma mater and received their Distinguished Alumni Citation. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree from that institution and put that degree to work in the United States Navy during the Vietnam conflict. So he is also a very patriotic American who has served this country well. And I also know him to be a great family man. He is married to Rosemary Tillman Stites. They have 4 children and 14 beautiful grandchildren. What is their age range?
From 1 year to 14.
Okay. Oh, that's great. That's great. I bet they keep you busy.
They do.
Okay.
One a year.
That's right. Oh, there you go. That's right. There you go. Good math, Bobby. For somebody who hadn't taken a college class in a while, that was impressive.
Keep going, Emily.
Welcome, Regent Stites. We are honored to have you in our midst. Thank you very much.
To be here. When I saw who all was on this group, I was glad to join up and do something great for Tennessee.
There you go. Thank you. Well put. Well put. With that, ladies and gentlemen, let's dig into this lengthy agenda. And our first item of business is to approve our minutes from our December 5 regular quarterly meeting. And our Yes, we do. I knew I was missing a page. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll? My apologies.
Regent Duckett.
Here.
Regent Ferris.
Here.
Regent Freeman.
Here.
Regent Griscom.
Here.
Regent Huffman. Regent Humphrey.
Here.
Regent Johnson. Regent Kisber.
Here.
Regent Markham. Regent Reynolds.
Here.
Regent Rhoda. Regent Roddy.
Here.
Regent Smith.
Here.
Regent Stites.
Here.
Regent Thomas.
Here.
Regent Varlin.
Here.
Regent Wallace.
Here.
Madam Chairman, you have a quorum.
I thank you, and thank you for keeping me on the straight and narrow there. So we will now move to the approval of our minutes from December 5, our regular quarterly board meeting, and on January 24, when we had a special called session. Are there any changes or corrections to the minutes?
Move approval.
Thank you, Regent Thomas. A second?
Second.
Regent Kisber, thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, we can act on this motion by a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. We also have an interim action report from the Chancellor, any actions that he has acted on behalf of the board since our last regular meeting. Chancellor Morgan?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe each of you have received previously a copy of the interim action report that does outline the business transacted by the Office of the Chancellor since our last meeting in December. I think it is fair to say that those are routine transactions. There's nothing there that is particularly out of the ordinary or noteworthy. So pending any questions, Madam Chair, I would recommend that the board approve the report of interim action.
Thank you. Any questions for the Chancellor? Regent Freeman? So moved. Thank you. I'll need a second to Regent Freeman's motion. Thank you, Regent Roddy. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, this is also a voice vote. All in favor of the interim report?
Aye.
Thank you. Opposed? Thank you. The Chancellor's interim report is approved. We now move to our committee reports. You have before you minutes from February 13's Finance and Business Operations Committee meeting, March 11, our Audit Committee meeting, also on March 11, our Ad Hoc Committee on Committees. And that's the three. Once again, I thought I was missing a piece of paper. My apologies. So the three are before us. I will entertain a motion to approve those minutes as presented.
So move approval. Second.
Thank you. Regent Ferris moves approval. Regent Duckett seconds. Is there any discussion around those committee minutes? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Our minutes are approved. Thank you very much. I now turn to Regent Duckett, who will present to us the Regents Award for Excellence in Philanthropy.
Thank you, Vice Chair Reynolds. It's my pleasure today to present the Regents Award for Excellence in Philanthropy. Mr. Lewis Gump, who was nominated by President Brian Nolan of East Tennessee State University. Mr. Gump had an idea to create a strong East Tennessee State University scholarship program so prestigious that our very best students did not have to leave the region to pursue the opportunities their talents and intelligence dictated. Our honoree put teeth into that idea with an initial financial gift and a whole lot of vision. Mr. Gump is referred to today by many as the godfather of the Rome Scholars Leadership Program. Among its alumni are teachers, physicians, attorneys, health officials, and school counselors. Its standards are rigorous, its interviews competitive, and its impact has been transformative. It has also helped elevate the reputation of the entire university. Now, some 14 years into the program, our honorees continue to shepherd Roan Scholars as mentor, as fundraiser, and an impassionate advocate. East Tennessee State University honoree has not limited his generosity and guidance to one component of the university. His list of loves at East Tennessee State University encompasses the arts, athletics, the College of Business and Technology, the East Tennessee State University General Shell Natural History Museum, and the Visionary Committee for 125. I am pleased today to acknowledge the recipient of the Regents Award for Excellence in Philanthropy, Mr. Lewis Gump. East Tennessee State University is grateful to Mr. Gump's commitment as he has helped guide so many students towards success by sharing his time, resources, and representing the university in the community. Mr. Gump is truly going above and beyond to ensure a successful future for the East Tennessee State University, and we are sincerely appreciative and congratulate him today. For additional comments, I would ask East Tennessee State University's president, Dr. Ryan Nolan, to please come forward. Dr. Nolan.
Regent Duckett, members of the board, on behalf of Mr. Gump and the institution, I thank you for your recognition of his service to our institution, but more importantly to our students. There's no better champion of ETSU than Mr. Louis Gump. He's provided the foundation of the Roan Scholars Program. He continues to be active on a daily basis in mentoring students. In fact, he was with us yesterday at the Complete College Summit. Mr. Gump gives tirelessly to the institution. He's chaired the 125 committee. And he's also a personal friend and mentor. If there's a time in which I have a question, if there's something I'm struggling with, Louis is one of the first phone calls that I make. He's a wonderful individual who has transformed our university, and on behalf of he and his family, he extends his gratitude to you for this recognition. Thank you.
Thank you, President Nolan. Any comments?
I'd just like to say it was indeed my honor with Dr. Nolan to present that award to Mr. Louis Gump, and what a wonderful friend and supporter of East Tennessee State that he is. So I appreciated that opportunity to do that. Thank you.
Vice Chair Reynolds, that concludes my report.
Thank you.
Thank you, Regent Duckett. Dr. Nolan, it's good to see you. So you're doing well? Excellent, excellent. Oh, I beg your pardon.
The same thing. It's
Yes.
just great to see Dr. Nolan back up, walking, and engaged with us.
Yeah. So, and Regent Smith, thank you for taking part in that important ceremony. I always love our Regents Award and a chance to highlight these outstanding Tennesseans who do so much on our campuses. It really, just like hearing from our students this morning, it's another example of the tremendous support that we have. Well, since we were all together in December, it's been a busy time. Our governor has announced his Tennessee Promise program that the state legislature is considering. A number of us have been involved in various legislative events around the states on our campuses. We have some searches going on that are of tremendous importance to the system, and we're almost at commencement season, believe it or not. So you've been busy. Chancellor,
Well,
it's time
right.
for your report.
All right. Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll try to be brief. I'm going to reserve a little bit of time of my report to later when Dale is presenting some budget information. I'll try to clarify some of the things that he's trying to say.
Wow. You don't get paid enough.
You're right about that. I will update you on a couple of things and the first is I think was mentioned just a moment ago that Mr. Gump was able to be with us at what we call a completion summit. I think you have seen the agenda for the completion summit was sent out to you, and we apologize. It was a little bit late for many of you to be able to participate with us. But you'll recall that back a couple of years ago now, we had what we call completion academies, where we brought teams in from a number of schools really for a day-long session of exploring strategies for how to approach making the kinds of improvements in their operations that would in fact lead to better student success and lead us toward our goals under the completion agenda. We had 2 of those academies at virtually all of our schools, and importantly, not just the Board of Regents system, but also the University of Tennessee system were participants in those completion academies. Well, yesterday we had an opportunity to bring folks back and teams from those institutions back really for a celebration of sorts, as well as a reporting out of the things that came from those academies back two years ago or so, kind of what worked best. What did you take from that and then take back to your campus, and what have your results been? And I got to tell you, it was an extraordinary opportunity, and that combined with today's student panel really has been back-to-back extraordinary opportunities. A room full in excess of 200 folks, teams from each of the community colleges and universities from both systems. They're in a room focused on specific strategies that had proven successful, understanding what additional things might be done. The first part of the meeting was really the reporting out. We highlighted four, or the summit highlighted four particular institutions. The governor was there, made some comments, and participated in a town hall meeting, I think is what we called it, with Dr. DiPietro, myself, and the governor, responding to questions. Dr. Bill Fox was there to talk about the economy in Tennessee, and also about some of the numbers that underlie the Tennessee Promise initiative. And then the afternoon was probably the most important thing that happened. The afternoon was a chance for team members from each of those institutions to be with team members from other institutions, talking about specific strategies, guided pathways, intensive advising, the whole range of things that you have heard from us in the past that we are pursuing to really try to operationalize, understand the intricacies of implementation, and get ideas from each other about how to go about the business of promoting student success. So it was a great day. It was an excellent event, I think. The thing that I was struck by perhaps most was the energy level in the room. We should be proud of the folks we have from our institutions that are committed on an everyday basis to the task of being successful with students and helping the state of Tennessee achieve its goals in terms of education attainment and a qualified workforce. So that was a great opportunity, and I think a really useful event, and we'll come back to that. We'll do that in a couple of years, and we'll have that again and kind of see where people are, and I think there'll be several ideas that come out of that effort yesterday that we'll be in a position to talk to you more about at future meetings. And then, as Chair noted, we are engaged very much in some search processes. Y'all have heard me say this before, but it's still true. Ever since I've been here, we've been engaged in a search. And I'm getting tired of it, frankly. So for those of you out there in the audience, just stay where you are, okay? It's hard work. The University of Memphis, we now have completed campus interviews of the four candidates that the search committee had identified. The finalists were Guy Bailey, who is a professor and former president of the University of Alabama, and former president of Texas Tech University. Sharon Gaber, who is currently the provost and vice chancellor for academic affairs at the University of Arkansas. George Hind, who is the provost and executive vice president for academic affairs at the College of Charleston, South Carolina, and then David Rudd, who is the current provost at the University of Memphis. Four very strong candidates. That committee, search committee that was chaired by Greg Duckett and John Ferris and Regent Humphrey Ashley were members of that committee, did a fantastic job of evaluating applicants and really came with four recommendations that are each incredible in a variety of ways. Once again, I will be in a position of reaching out to the committee members. That's a process that is starting right now. I was able to complete my last interview with the fourth candidate yesterday, and polling the members kind of how they feel about it now that they've seen the candidates on campus, and the kind of feedback that they've gotten from their constituencies, whether they be faculty, staff, students, or community members. But once again, I'm in a position of it's going to be a very hard decision. I can guarantee it will be a hard decision, but it is comforting to know that I can't mess up because any of the four candidates are strong candidates. And I have every confidence that I'll be in the same position here in a few weeks based on the search for a new president at Austin Peay. As you all know, Tim Hall is leaving us at the end of the semester. And there is still time, Tim. We hadn't gone too far yet. So, but we will be interviewing candidates on Monday and Tuesday. 12 folks have been invited back to visit with invited to visit with the committee, from which a smaller pool of finalists will be selected. So that is that process is well underway, and it is very ably chaired by Regent Thomas, John Ferris, Darrell Freeman, Emily Reynolds are the Regent members of that search committee. So we'll have more to say about that in the coming weeks, both in terms of a recommendation at Memphis and then the ultimate recommendation for Austin Peay. A couple other things I'd like to do, and then I'll stop. From time to time, one of the neatest things you get to do, frankly, as chancellor, is recognize people for extraordinary efforts. And about 2 years ago, under the direction of Vice Chancellor Sims, or under the direction of Vice Chancellor Sims, loosely under the direction, but it was his idea, I think, that we pursue this. But the system adopted something called the SciQuest e-procurement product. It's an automated procurement software package that had been utilized at some of our institutions, I think, including MTSU and others, but really moves our procurement into a much better environment in terms of automated procurement, the ability to take advantage of opportunities that are out there. And implementation of a major new system initiative is never easy, but it is made easier when you have people who are involved in it that are really committed, that understand it, and can work to make it go well. The effort was really led by Angela Flynn, who and her assistant Mark Hodges of the system office, and unfortunately, board members, we don't do as good a job of bringing folks into the board meetings that really do the work. Dale and I don't really do work, but these people really do work. Or at least I really, whatever.
You're digging a hole here.
First rule of holes, stop digging. All right. But recently, we learned that Angie and Mark have been recognized by SciQuest with their Rookies of the Year award. It's an award that they give to a team of procurement professionals that exhibit professionalism, impressive performance, and attention to detail. And I just wanted to recognize both Mark and Angie for their work in this effort and for what they do every day to help us at the Board of Regents and across the system. So if they're here, if they would stand up, I would really appreciate it. And it's also Angie's birthday. I think it's yeah. So thank y'all for being here under false pretenses, I think. I'd also like to recognize another student. We've had a great recognition today of students. But Northeast State student Olivia Orton of Kingsport has been named a 2014 New Century Scholar. The only community college student in Tennessee to receive this honor. The New Century Scholars Program is sponsored by the Coca-Cola Foundation, Coca-Cola Scholars Foundation, Phi Theta Kappa, and the American Association of Community Colleges. More than 1,700 students were nominated from more than 900 colleges across the country for this recognition. The judges in this consider grades, leadership activities, and most importantly, how students extend their intellectual talents beyond the classroom. And a total of 51 students of that 1,700 actually received this award. Olivia attributes much of her success to the college's TRIO Student Support Services program. Those of you from our institutions understand what TRIO is. It's a federally funded program that really provides tutoring, mentoring, and transfer services to eligible college students. She's a social work major with a 4.0 grade point average. After graduation, she plans on transferring to ETSU and pursue bachelor's and master's degrees, and wants to come back to Northeast State and become a TRIO transfer advisor. And Olivia, Brian Nolan is here, so y'all may want to hook up. But she's TRIO Club president. She's Glee Club president. She's a member of Phi Theta Kappa, a member of the President's Student Leadership Academy and the Council for Leadership, Advocacy, and Student Success, and she currently holds the Brock Services Limited Scholarship. New Century Scholars are the highest scoring students in each state, plus one student from Canada, and one additional student chosen among the remaining 7 sovereign nations where Phi Theta Kappa is represented internationally. Each winner will receive a $2,000 scholarship and be invited to attend the American Association of College Presidents convention in Washington the first week in April. So she's with us today, and I would like y'all to make her welcome and recognize her achievement. So with that, Madam Chair, that is my report for now.
That was an excellent report. Much appreciated. And congratulations, Olivia. Well done. Regent Thomas, did you want to add anything to the Chancellor's remarks since you attended the Completion Academy yesterday?
Well, you were there too. That's what you wanted to know. I mean, thanks for recognizing both of us. No, I really don't. It was a really, I enjoyed very much the experience and was glad I went. And, just happy I had the time to do it. But no, I have nothing more to add.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for being there. So, no, and I think the excitement in the room was palpable, as the Chancellor said. The Governor's remarks were on target. The thing that I remain so proud of, that showed in the panel discussion with the Governor and our UT President, Dr. DiPietro, and our Chancellor, is that spirit of cooperation between the systems. And I know we mention that probably at every meeting, but it really does make a tremendous amount of difference. And the fact that the Governor pointed out, and Chancellor and I experienced this at a meeting we went to back in December. The Governor said among his fellow governors and in his other travels, folks are asking what's happening with education in Tennessee because they know there are good things happening on the front of public higher education. So that's very exciting for us to hear as regents and for you all to be aware of as well. As the Chancellor said, it really is all about the good work that all of you do in our schools each and every day. So we thank you. You make us proud.
I do have one comment. You reminded me, in the 9 years I've been on this board, there has not always been the cooperation between the two systems, but Chancellor Morgan and President DiPietro really do cooperate in every way for the benefit of higher education in Tennessee, and that was so evident yesterday in their complementary of each other, and yet, recognizing they have different systems, but they have one goal, and that is higher education in Tennessee. That has not always been true in the 9 years I've been on this board, but since Chancellor Morgan's been here and Dr. DiPietro, it's been a very rewarding for me to see that kind of cooperation. I probably shouldn't say this, but the provost, maybe I shouldn't, but I will. You don't know what I'm going to say, but no, the provost at UT, Dr. Katie High, was sitting next to me when the Chancellor and Dr. DiPietro were sitting up there with the Governor, and I said something to Dr. High about how pleased I was at the cooperation between the two systems, and she said, "We call them the boys." So I shouldn't have said it.
Yeah, you're right. I guess that's a compliment.
All right, I'll turn it back.
Thank
over.
you.
I'm turning
Thank
red
you.
now.
Oh, I'm going to be careful when I call on you next. So for all of the good work that our schools do, this is the portion of our agenda where we do want to hear the report from our presidents and directors and the exciting things that are happening on our campuses. And I think I have this right in terms of the order. We'll begin with President Oldham from Tennessee Tech for our report from the universities. Dr. Catanzaro, why don't you just then sort of naturally follow him for our community colleges report, and then Director White, we'll look forward to hearing from the TCATs. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, Board of Regents, Chancellor. It's a pleasure to be with you today. It's a pleasure to represent the universities in the TBR system. And just a quick follow-up on some of that conversation. I have a unique perspective of being able to work in both higher education systems in the state of Tennessee at probably the most dynamic point in history that we can remember or think of. And to see that group together yesterday and to see how much has been accomplished in both systems over the last 2 years is incredibly remarkable. And the accolades are well deserved, because I know individuals in both systems have worked very hard, very diligently, and it's all been based on the true interest on serving the students of the state. And so I appreciate that greatly. What I'd like to do for you today is fairly quickly give you a sort of a high altitude perspective on what the universities in the TBR system have been able to accomplish since 2010 and the passage of the Complete College Tennessee Act. And we'll just take a quick look at the numbers and give you an idea of what those numbers mean. But then I want to bring you down a little bit closer to the ground level and see how that's really influencing the lives of individual students. So very quickly, at a glance, since the passage of the 2010 Complete College Act, degrees awarded at TBR universities have been up 13%. Our enrollment has climbed, but not nearly at that rate. It has climbed about 6% since that time. So you can see that the efficiency of producing degrees has increased substantially in a very short period of time. And that's at a time when state funding on a per capita basis, on a per FTE, has decreased by approximately 37%. Tuition, in fact, has gone up, but not nearly at the same rate, at about 23% per FTE. So that if you filter all that down, and the Chancellor has some great data as well to support this, that the actual costs of producing a graduate in Tennessee has decreased over this time period, where actual costs, actual expenditures are down about 2% per full-time equivalent student. So the universities are actually doing a quite remarkable job. We actually are doing more with less, and I would attest that we're doing a better job. And it's because of the kind of effort that we all saw yesterday at the completion summit that has allowed that to happen. And I think most certainly that will continue to happen. But it also points to the fact that we have struggles, we have challenges ahead of us to continue that kind of effort based on this environment. But that's the numbers. That's a great story. But that's the numbers, and we know that we've got some 90,000 plus students that we're serving among the TBR universities. And like the old saying goes, every one of those 90,000 has a story to tell. They each have a life. They each have ambitions, aspirations, and it's our obligation and opportunity to help them achieve those aspirations. So we have a short video that I'd like to show that sort of highlights, and this is not necessarily meant to be representative, but it gives you some idea about the individuals that we're serving and the opportunities that are being created by your university system in the Board of Regents. I want to give special recognition to the staffs of our universities that helped put this together at short notice, I would indicate. So please overlook any small editing issues, but I think the stories are the important thing. And so please enjoy this, and then I'll take any questions that you might have afterwards.
I wanted to play basketball at a high level, and you can do that because Tech obviously has Division I athletics. And then the other very important thing was that I wanted to find a school where I could be in a really good engineering program. And tech really was the only option that I had in that regard, to combine high-level athletics with a high level of education. One important thing is that I believe that the university just offers you a lot of opportunities once you graduate. You can go to graduate school, you can find a high-qualified job, and it just opens a lot of doors to people, whether it's academically or even athletically. If you want to go to university as an athlete, that opens you a lot more doors to maybe professional sports, where a lot of my teammates do, or a lot of my engineering friends they just get really well-paying jobs. And another thing is, it's just a great on-campus experience. Where, especially at Tech, I almost feel like everybody's a family most of the time, and because when you're studying together at the library, stuff like that. And it's just a great atmosphere. We all support our athletics. We're all in this together, basically.
In a continuation of my studies of particle physics here at Austin Peay, I'm now going to go to Geneva, Switzerland, and study at the CERN lab in a magnanimous opportunity at CERN for trying to find the Higgs boson, a particle that has been elusive to many researchers, both in the United States, Europe, and basically across the world. And it is the particle that everyone is currently searching for. It's really been a continual cycle to get to this research opportunity. I've had two great mentors, first Kevin Schultz and now Dr. Alex King. And they've basically pushed me beyond my boundaries to apply for outside research opportunities to do research here on campus in addition to harder studies here at Austin Peay. And that's awarded me several opportunities in atomic physics at Louisiana State, biophysics at the University of Michigan, and now CERN, which is probably the pinnacle of an undergraduate's career. And I'm just glad that I had them and had these opportunities at Austin Peay.
We are in our TBA stock trading investment room. It was actually donated by one of our alumni. He fully equipped it with the TVs, the stock ribbon, so we can constantly be aware of what's going on in the markets. It's actually my favorite class that I've had during my entire time that I've been at Tech. We have about 8 students in our course, and we actually invest real money for TBA. So real-life, hands-on investment class. In coming to Tech, I think that I was a very driven and passionate student. I had definite goals in mind, and it's been really neat to see how I've grown and changed in ways, but have really developed into the person that I want to be. And I think the way that that's happened is just by being surrounded by like-minded people that fully support your goals and ambition.
I utilized the Fresh Start program here at ETSU, but it was a huge benefit just in knowing you can come back and better yourself. And ETSU welcomes that. That was a huge relief. While I was here at ETSU, I got to work in the Veterans Affairs office and realized that giving back, not just as a medic, but through GI Bill benefits, through any kind of benefits at all that is available to our veterans, that was a really big asset to us. And I wanted to tap that and help our veterans succeed.
And here at MTSU, I'm involved in pretty much a couple of things. So just to name a few, Student Government Association. I was just selected to be a part of the Student Ambassadors Program here this spring. So I applied to be part of the talent show, and it was the BMI hosted the talent show. And there at the talent show, I was selected to sing a solo by John Legend, Stay With You. And I performed the solo, and little did I know, I didn't think I was going to win second place. This 2 years just being here has really allowed me to be a better person. And I say that because getting involved with the organizations I'm involved with, it has allowed me to be able to reach out to people. It has increased my organization skills, my communication skills, most definitely. And I cannot thank MTSU enough for that, because without MTSU, I wouldn't be able to be involved in these such things such as BMI and Inroads. And those things have allowed me to grow as a person, and it really has taught me the great deeds that you're going to need to succeed in this world and this whole community. And being here at MTSU has helped me achieve those type of things and those type of goals.
Say do 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 do. Oh yeah. We've been together for a while now. We're growing strong every day now. It feels so good and there is no doubt. Yeah.
I hope that gives you some idea of the impact that we're having on an individual basis. And for those of us that have the unique opportunity of working with students like this on a regular basis, it's what we do. We have a passion for it, and that's why we're seeing the results that we are. So thank you for your support, and we certainly welcome all of you to come to our campuses at any opportunity and see some of this firsthand as well. I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have.
I have a question. I yield to the.
He's yielding to the newbie. Are these numbers we're looking at from 2010 through today?
Yes, as best I could get, this is all actually from Tennessee Higher Education Commission data. Some of it we had to go a little bit beyond 2010 to get comparable data because some of the financials were kind of pieced together during the recession years. But yeah, basically just before 2010 to now. Yeah.
Is 13% good?
It's we're not happy with that in the sense that we're satisfied by any means.
No, I just yeah. When I see 13% up 13%, I have nothing to compare it to.
Yeah,
should it have been 25%?
Over a period of really two years, basically 2 operating years, a 13% increase is pretty remarkable. You don't see that normally among institutions nationally, so that's a pretty significant increase in a short period of time. But I think we would all argue that we need to continue to strive to do even better. We need to get these numbers as high as possible. But I think what this shows is that for where we are right now, we're on the right track. We're making things happen. And again, for those of us that saw the energy in the room yesterday and to just see what institutions are now in the process of implementing and in many cases 1 and 2 years into implementation, to see how they're making those adjustments on their individual campus to respond to their unique challenges is really quite heartening.
So with all that additional effort, if you had to come back and give this presentation next year, what would that number be?
I hope it continues to increase. But again, this is a challenging time as state support continues to decline, and we struggle with making sure the cost of attendance stays at a reasonable level. There are significant challenges. So to make sure that we have the quality of the educational experience to match what students' expectations are and what future employers' expectations are, that's going to be the real challenge. So I'd love to say that it will continue to increase it at a similar clip, but we got some things to deal with.
And I got one more question. Mm-hmm. I think just one more. So overall, what's the graduation rate for the universities?
Overall, the university's graduation rate is just short of 50%, I believe. It's about 49, a little over 50. We're all hovering right around 50%. That's a 6-year cohort graduation rate, so that's not counting transfer students or anything other than first-time, full-time freshmen. So now the statewide graduation rate is typically a little bit better than that. THEC's able to account for transfers within the state. We don't really we have limited capabilities of tracking students that transfer out of state. We do know that far more of those students ultimately do graduate than that number would imply.
I got one more question.
Okay.
I promise. Is it? One more question for you, not you, Dr. C.
Yeah.
Is 50% good?
No, it's not. It's not where we need to be.
What are we striving? What's our goal?
Well, I think all the institutions, all the universities have goals in place. At Tennessee Tech, we've made a statement that we want to achieve, at least initially, to get to the 60% graduation mark for a 6-year cohort. That's a stretch goal, but it is achievable over time. And so I think, every institution in our system at least has those kind of stretch goals in mind, and I think they're working hard to achieve them.
All right, numbers guy, you good? For now. Okay. Good questions always. And it does help. It drives all of us to think about that accountability and where we need and want to be over time. Any other questions or comments for Dr. Oldham? Nicely done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Well, good afternoon, Vice Chancellor Reynolds and distinguished members of the Board of Regents and Chancellor Morgan. I know I speak for Warren Nichols and for all the presidents of the community colleges. We tremendously were energized by the events yesterday. Great sharing of ideas, great sharing of programs that are working in the various institutions, and we historically have not done that, not only among community colleges, but among all of the institutions within TBR and certainly with the University of Tennessee. So it was certainly worth the time that we put into it, and I know the tremendous amount of time in preparing for it. What we want to do today is talk a little bit about answering in advance Regent Freeman's question, which he asked of my student body president, and others, and that was really, what about those people that graduate around you? Where are they going? Are they being placed? And the answer for community colleges is that over 90% of our graduates in career programs are placed within 6 months in positions that are directly related to their field of study. So that's quite an achievement, and one I think we can take pride in, not only here in Tennessee, but across the United States. Part of the reason is that we're constantly engaged with business and industry. We engage them in training, we engage them in the development of our specific courses and programs, and to demonstrate that, I'm asked 2 colleges if they would make a brief presentation of what they're doing, and John Churchill is going to come representing Nate Essex and Southwest Community College, and he's going to talk about a program that I'd like to have because it's a program with Hershey chocolate.
So, thank you. And by the way, the Hershey products on the table was provided by Hershey. They heard that we were going to do this, and they asked if we'd take some of their products up. You're going to see a short video about a new advanced industrial training program that we have. And I want to introduce it just a little bit to talk about how it come about. Hershey came to us. They had been working with another community college, out of state, by the way, and they had been working with them for 2 years with a need to advance their current maintenance program and integrate their maintenance progression with an associate's degree. And after 2 years, they gave up. They just simply said, this college does not have the capability to do this. Now, they hedged their bets. They went to Mississippi and started working with a college in Mississippi. They came over to Southwest and asked if we could help them. And they were impatient. They were ready to leave. They were not going to waste 2 more years. And because of the fine work that Columbia State had done on a degree program with the qualities that they were looking for, and the TBR's fairly new policy of sharing and doing it quickly, we were able to go from concept to students in just over 6 months. They were so pleased with this program, we now have a $50,000 piece of training equipment in the lab that belongs to Hershey that they're allowing us to use not only for their students, but for all students, with the intent, if we continue to provide them the service that we're providing, they will donate it to the school. But one of the things that we've been able to do is we're not trying to compete with the other colleges in the area, especially the fact that we're in a tri-state area. We're going to run our own race. We're going to do what we do. We're going to do it well. And one of the things that we do extremely well is to listen to the business community, because it's not only developing a pipeline for the students that they're looking for, but how do we enhance their current employees? And if we learn how to enhance their current employees, we then know what they're looking for, and we can then provide our students with the training that they need. So with that, I'll show you the video and shut up.
Advanced Integrated Industrial Technology at Southwest Tennessee Community College, enhancing skills for the 21st century.
The AIT program at Southwest will make a huge difference in bettering your workplace environment.
The instructors have real-life experience.
It's great for a person like me who is working during the day, and I can access what I need any time of the day.
It will help them with their job skills, and it will help them advance up the career ladder.
The concept for Southwest's Advanced Integrated Industrial Technology degree began with the needs expressed by the Hershey Company Memphis plant. Hershey was looking for a local college willing to deliver a unique hybrid program that included e-learning and flexible lab times.
This program is necessary because as manufacturing advances, maintenance technicians aren't working on the strictly mechanical machine anymore. It's now a combination of both electrical, mechanical, and controls. So to be more effective at working on the equipment, we're looking for a multi-skilled technician.
It's important to have a facility like this where we have equipment that represents exactly what the student will see after they complete our program. They will see that same type of equipment in the real world.
The AIT program Southwest created with Hershey's input has sparked interest from other companies with similar needs.
I greatly value the employees that have gone through the AIT program at Southwest because it improves their skill levels and allows them to perform at an enhanced level, improving themselves and the company.
What I like about the AIT program is that it's interactive, internet-based, which means I can access it 24 hours of the day, and also the flexible lab hours.
Flexibility of it all is great. The instructors are really awesome. You can almost ask them for help at any time, whether you're in the lab or you're working through a module at home online.
The best thing about the AIT program at Southwest is that what you do in the classroom works in the real-world situation. What you learn in class, you can take out to your work, and you'll do it right there on the spot, and you'll know how to do it.
Having an instructor with firsthand experience means that you're dealing with someone that has dealt with this in real life. They're not just regurgitating theory from a book.
Personally, what I like the most about this program is it's an accredited degree program working towards an associate's degree. They also can assess prior skill. So what that means is if you've been a mechanic for 10 to 15 years, there's certain things that you've learned on the job, skills you currently possess. They can assess that skill and turn it into credit hours that can be applied toward the degree program.
Hershey, like many of our area companies, needs a pipeline of students ready to enter the workplace with the high technical knowledge and the ability to understand new technologies.
As we have our employees retire, we're creating a huge demand in this area for new talent. As companies come to the area, it only gets more competitive.
The perfect time to start the AIT program at Southwest is now. We want to introduce and prepare our students for these great jobs that we have in our regional companies.
The jobs are here, and the demand for industrial maintenance technicians is increasing. Southwest Advanced Integrated Industrial Technology Program helps prepare participants for some of these sought-after, high-paying, and rewarding career opportunities.
Obviously a great program, and something on the other side of the state. I'm going to have Anthony Wise come up here and talk about a program at Pellissippi. And remember, you got to focus it in on a response to Regent Freeman. Do you have that clear?
I plan to defer any remaining time to you, Jim, for questions. good. I think we've got a couple slides. Okay. Pellissippi State's had a relationship with Denso since 1992. Denso is headquartered in Japan, but it's a major employer in Blount County. They employ about 3,500 people in Blount County, and they actually have plans to expand their operations in Blount County and across Tennessee. They are an automotive supplier. They produce advanced technology systems and components in the areas of thermal, powertrain control, and electronics. I do not have samples for you at the meeting today. Our relationship with Denso began like many corporate relationships with community colleges across the system and across the state with workforce training programs. We've delivered training on site in their facility. They've come to our campus for training in their electronics technology and the type of equipment that they need their employees to work on. And you find examples of this all across the community college system in Tennessee. They've been engaged in the work that's gone on at Pellissippi State over the course of the last 20 or 25 years or so. They serve on our advisory committees, which gives us feedback in terms of what we need to put in our curriculum and our engineering technology programs, as many employers do across the state, and we're very grateful for that kind of contribution. Denso, like many employers, is interested in growing the number of young people interested in STEM, so they've created what they call these MEC labs that go out into middle schools and high schools to get young people interested in the types of careers you saw both at Hershey and that are available at Denso in Blount County. And they've helped us purchase equipment for things like programmable controllers and robotic arms that allow us to teach our students the kind of skills they need for their employers. Over the course of the last year and a half or so, the conversation's taken a different turn, and I think it's very consistent with what we're hearing in terms of the Complete College Act and the Drive to 55, and that Denso was really interested in the type of credential their employees needed in order to indicate that they would be successful over the long run. So we developed a concentration called Automated Industrial Systems. It's a concentration that's part of our engineering technology program. And it's really grew out of their desire for a more skilled labor force. So we had those conversations. We took the types of outcomes that they needed for their employees. We had our engineering faculty have a conversation with their designers and their users and the folks that were on the floor and developed a concentration within our program for Denso. It prepares students, much like Hershey does, the program for Hershey at Southwest for careers in modern manufacturing control systems. It develops skills in electrical circuits and AC and DC motors, in motion control, data acquisitions. None of these things were in my history curriculum when I was an undergraduate. Programmable logic, very sophisticated forms of technology and equipment. Denso has continued to partner with us. They provided $50,000 for the equipment to make sure we had exactly the kinds of tools that they needed for the instruction that would allow our students to be successful. And our students are being placed in jobs. I think for our engineering technology program, our placement rates are 97, 98%. So this is just another example of the great work that goes throughout the state and throughout our system in terms of community colleges responding to local business and industry, making sure that we've got not only the workforce training, which continues to go on, but the type of curriculum programs that will help develop the workforce of today and tomorrow, reaching out to young people as they're in middle school and high school and creating those pathways to get into good paying jobs. We've seen other employers respond in the area. Green Mountain Coffee is another significant employer in our service area who's interested in this type of program, and we fully expect it to grow significantly over the course of the next few years. Jim's ready for questions.
Well, we heard yesterday that, of course, we're headed toward a crisis with our workforce in the next 10, 15 years in Tennessee unless we do this kind of preparation. We have a lot of folks that are retiring that are in the technological level of employment. And many people are leaving the state, and lots of companies are coming to us, and many companies are changing production processes, introducing new equipment, new strategies to manufacturing and doing business. We have to be prepared for them. That's what we're about in the community colleges of Tennessee. I welcome your questions.
Questions, comments? Mr. Stites.
I have a question. Can you... A certification is not worth a lot unless it drives the meaningful curricula that is necessary for the employees to be successful when they get on the job site. how do you determine what curricula is needed in that certification so that it's really a meaningful certification?
This is one I can speak confidently about. We just discussed it this morning among the community college presidents, and we all start in the same place. We have advisory committees, and they're really like skills committees. We ask them to give us in as much detail as they can precisely what they want. We look at it at Chattanooga State. We do the training for Volkswagen. When Volkswagen puts their specs out for a windshield, you might have heard me say this before, it's a book thick about the specifics that they want in that windshield. Well, we feel the same way about the employees that we're training for them. We want them to be prepared in that very specific and thorough fashion. And it starts with working with business and industry to give us the specifics.
Do you then run that certification checklist backed by the industry?
We most certainly do. Ongoing conversations, and of course, most of these programs have a special accreditation as well. And that ensures that what we learn there is also put in a format and standardized at a level that would receive national recognition.
Do you also have benchmarks or measurements after the person graduates to see how effective your certification was in light of the as the industry might view it?
We do. We follow up on those people that are employed, the nearly 100% that leave our programs that are employed. Yes, we're very exacting because what we're after more than anything else is mastery. We're not interested in just teaching people a subject or a skill level. We want to make sure that they have made that part of their muscle memory.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I just want to underscore a point that Mr. Churchill made and Dr. Wise and Dr. Catanzaro, that, and those of you who were at the Completion Academy yesterday heard it, but the importance of listening to the business community. And I think it was great that the governor mentioned to the leaders of the Tennessee Business Roundtable who were scattered in that audience that it really has to be a two-way communication. He applauded our flexibility in working with the business community as needs develop, just like the case at Hershey or Denso. But encouraging that two-way street with the business community is so critical. So thank you for your comments in that regard. Director White, while you're coming to the podium too, I'll remind our regents that we do have our reports as well with us from each group that we can take and read at our leisure too. Thank you.
Thank you. That's one thing I was going to mention is please look at the TCAT News for information from all the schools in your area. Also passed out to you was a save the date for Tennessee College of Applied Technology in Nashville for their fundraiser, silent auction, fine dining. The students from TCAT McMinnville will be serving, and there'll be a murder mystery dinner show, so it should be entertaining as well as exciting. Vice Chancellor or Vice Chairman Reynolds and Chancellor Morgan and Regents, it's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon. There's a couple things that has happened. I don't know the exact dates or what was going on at the time, except 12, 15 years ago, TCAT Memphis went through an accreditation process from the Commission of Occupational Education, had somewhere around 36 recommendations. Not too good. And then there was an interim director about 6 years ago that set in and had another accreditation, and they got it down to 12 recommendations. This past week, or 2 weeks ago, Memphis went through an accreditation process with COE, with Director Roland Rayner at the helm, and had no recommendations. So we want to congratulate him and his staff on a job well done, which will segue right into this next part. Memphis has had an ongoing relationship and partnership with FedEx that they call a win-win. And so I'm going to ask Director Roland Rayner from TCAT Memphis if he'll come up and address that.
Good afternoon. I was not expecting that, Dr. White, but I do appreciate it. And a lot of hard work went into that. I had very little to do with it. I have to give all the credit to faculty and staff. They did the bulk of the work, and I do appreciate that. Again, good afternoon, and I want to talk a little bit about this afternoon about a win-win situation or partnership with FedEx. And I have with me a gentleman that I've known for a very long time, since my beginning, not as director at TCAT Memphis, Mr. Joaquin Villarreal. Now, I'm going to introduce him in just a bit. But we do want to just talk a little bit about this win-win partnership, with FedEx. And I'm going to do a little bit of history. And then I'm going to introduce Mr. Villarreal and let him kind of share his win-win. A little history. The aviation program at TCAT Memphis started in 1969, and at that time we had a partnership with FedEx. In fact, I believe the program was actually started as a result. Now, I do understand that FedEx opened its doors as well in 1969, and so I believe that the opening of our aviation program was directly related to FedEx opening. Our campus that we currently have opened in 1997 on the Tullahoma address on the airport property. We have graduated since 1969 about 3,000 students. We have currently a 100% licensure pass rate with FAA, and we think that's just absolutely awesome. It tells me that our faculty are doing what they need to do in order to impart the skills necessary for our students to pass this exam, which is a must if you plan on working in the aviation industry as a mechanic. The aviation program is also extremely involved in the community. They do a lot of work with the Memphis ACE youth program. They're also involved with the Bessie Coleman Aerospace Legacy, as well as Memphis Blackhawks, the Women in Aviation Memphis Bells, the Organization for Black Aerospace Professionals, the Memphis Aviation Professionals, Tuskegee, as well as the Tuskegee Airmen. Earlier I mentioned that Mr. Villarreal, who I'll introduce at this time, and when he's done his piece, I'm going to come back and talk a little bit about our win-win. Mr. Villarreal is a veteran of the Army, a vet. He holds a BS degree in aviation management, as well as an MBA. Mr. Villarreal is a pilot, as well as an aircraft and a PowerPoint technician. He is a senior manager of operations at FedEx, and he also served as an instructor at TCAT Memphis for about 5 years prior to moving on to his current position. We're extremely happy to have Mr. Villarreal with us on this afternoon, and I'm happy to have him as a partnering with TCAT Memphis. Mr. Villarreal and his wife, they enjoy boating and hiking, and have a son that's going to be going off to school here in this fall. Also very active in his church. And Mr. Villarreal and I had an opportunity to do a lot of conversating when we came up, driving up this morning. We learned a lot about each other. And so at this time, I'm going to turn things over to Mr. Villarreal, and I'm going to come back a little later and chat a little bit about the win-wins for TCAT Memphis. Mr. Villarreal.
Thank you, sir. First, I'd like to say that a few years back, I had the pleasure of working for what was then known as Memphis Area VOTEC Schools in their aviation campus, under the leadership at that time, at least during part of my 5-year tenure there, of Vice Chancellor of TCAT, James King. So that was indeed a good time for me. I really enjoyed working in the school. I want to start by just saying very quickly that now that I'm at FedEx, there is nothing in my professional career, I think, that has given me as much satisfaction as getting back in touch with the graduates of the school, going to the flight line, to the hangars, renewing old friendships over something you may not see for months or years at a time, but mostly by seeing how much they have grown in their careers, in their skills, in what they're doing, catching up with their families, find out they have kids now. But I'm sometimes in awe as to how much they know. Little did I know at that time that their knowledge would surpass mine tenfold. So I'm here to validate, first of all, the relationship, the win-win-win relationship, I feel, because it's not just industry and the college, but the students, more important. And to that end, I also want to talk about technology. Okay. Technology is incredibly important in our curriculum today. What you see in front of you is a virtual maintenance trainer. Probably the most critical skill of any aviation maintenance technician is troubleshooting. Efficiently, quickly, correctly, legally, and safe, you have to know what you're doing. Now, it's possible to fix an airplane by changing a lot of parts. It costs a fortune. It takes a lot of time. It could take a week. But to get a technician that can zero in on the problem is, like the commercial says, priceless. This tool right here goes a long way to enhancing and teaching our students the correct troubleshooting methodology. And without getting into too much detail, I'll leave it up if there's any questions, but basically, to summarize, this tool simulates all the software, all the electronics of the aircraft. You can troubleshoot right there. It'll tell you what the fault code is. You research the fault code after you interrogate the machine, and you kind of figure out how to fix it. But not too different from what you experience today on cars, except that there's a lot of different systems interacting that you don't have on cars. Lots of hydraulics and pneumatics and autopilots, so it becomes more complex. That's where the value of a tool like this is. And I'm happy to know that TCAT Aviation School in Memphis is on track to acquire one of these. I think it's important also for industry to be a partner. And so today, the school also has to use, it's available to them in their training, a 727 aircraft that was previously used by FedEx. And hopefully, very soon, possibly this year, this aircraft will be upgraded to an Airbus A310. Big difference because the 727 is an analog technology, which basically means in a cockpit, you always know what kind of aircraft you have because it has those round, seems like hundreds of these round gauges. And the digital technology has flat panels, usually 4, 5, 6. And all the same instrumentation is in there, although computers are now sorting out what's important for the pilot or the technician to see at any given time. So again, I want to thank you for the opportunity. I want to validate that FedEx will plan to continue working with TCAT Memphis, and I believe this is a good investment for everybody, not the least our students. And as far as the ROI, if you will, we anticipate in the next 10 years, approximately half or more of our technicians will be retirement eligible. So again, we're looking forward to continuing to hire from TCAT Memphis and not just continuing, but enhancing our relationship. Thank you.
Well done. Now, Roland, I'm going to warn you. Regent Freeman is a pilot. I should have prefaced this this presentation.
Well, I'm not, and if he asks any questions, I'll direct him right
Joaquin,
here.
that was very impressive. Thank you.
Right. And we spoke about win-wins, and of course, for TCAT Memphis, the major win-win is our students. The opportunity to receive quality training on quality equipment that leads to quality employment. And again, I mentioned earlier the number of graduates from TCAT Memphis Aviation Program. Currently, there are over 800 of our graduates working at FedEx. Wow. 800 of those working at FedEx with an annual earning that you can place back, spending power back into the community, $60 million a year of those 800 employees that are currently working at FedEx. Now, when you're talking about win-win, you heard it straight from the horse's mouth. Not that you're a horse, but straight from the horse's mouth that this is most definitely a win-win for TCAT Memphis. And we do appreciate Mr. Villarreal as well as FedEx for this partnership, and we're looking forward to continuing it for a long, long time going forward. That basically ends my presentation. We have to entertain any questions.
So you mentioned that you're going to be getting a new piece of equipment that you think is ordered. This has been ordered. Is that the case?
Yes, we're in the process of purchasing the virtual trainer, about a little more than a $500,000 piece of equipment, and we're hoping to acquire that shortly. Currently working on that. The value of the aircraft from FedEx, and mentioned that as well. The Airbus appraised at about $5 million. That's a pretty significant donation to TCAT Memphis.
So the piece of equipment that you're getting, will it simulate problems in general that FedEx airplanes may have? Is that the case?
From my understanding, I believe this particular piece of equipment is on the A310.
Okay.
So it is the fleet type.
Gotcha. Awesome.
But actually, it more than the specific problems, Regent Freeman. I think you know that it's the logic thinking of the mechanic, the technician to follow.
Yes.
That it is also instilled. So what I'm trying to also say is that no matter what aircraft you're going to be eventually working on, having this knowledge and this set of methodology will help you immensely.
And I got one more question. And so when the person finishes TCAT Memphis's aviation program, they go on to get their A&P. That's when you talked about the 100% success rate of getting their A&P. Okay, awesome. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very
Thank you.
impressive. Thank you. All three were very, four, I guess I should say, but counting two for the community colleges, just very impressive presentations today. And I think underscores, as Regent Griscom and I were talking earlier, it's all about student success, about our drive to 55 and increasing those graduation rates. So well done to everybody. And to Hershey's, we thank you for the treats this afternoon. But do not attempt to get close to Regent Thomas's bowl. He does not share well.
Leave me alone.
Oh, well done this afternoon to all. Thank you so much. We do not, as I understand it, have any unfinished business to come before the board at this time. So we will move to new business, where you have our consent agenda before us with 5 items, revisions to 4 policies, a repeal of system-wide and institutional rules. You have the opportunity to ratify all of these without any discussion, or if anyone prefers, we can pull any 1 or more items for specific discussion at this time. Thank you. We have, thank you. Who was the second? I'm sorry? Regent Freeman, thank you. Any discussion on these 5 items? Hearing none, all in favor to accept the consent agenda?
I think there may be some expected.
I beg your pardon, Mary, I did not read far enough. Thank you. This will require a roll call vote. Madam Secretary.
Duckett.
Aye.
Regent Ferris.
Yes.
Regent Freeman.
Aye.
Regent Griscom.
Yes.
Regent Humphrey.
Aye.
Regent Kisber.
Aye.
Regent Reynolds.
Aye.
Regent Roddy.
Aye.
Regent Smith.
Aye.
Regent Stites.
Aye.
Regent Thomas.
Aye.
Regent Barlin.
Aye.
Regent Wallace. Motion carries.
Thank you. We now move to our informational reporting. Vice Chancellor Sims, followed by Vice Chancellor Gregory. We'll first discuss an overview of the governor's budget recommendations and receive our legislative update. And I believe from what the Chancellor said earlier, you'll be chiming in here along the way, too.
One of the slides.
Okay.
Couldn't stop him if you wanted to.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. As we just noted, the Chancellor and I will tag team a little bit on this one. Before we get to the details of this, I know David will give you a more detailed discussion or presentation on legislative events. For my purposes, just want to let you know that that I think it's becoming very clear. Legislature is going to finish up mid-April, which means they'll be taking up the governor's budget in all earnestness within the next week or so. We expect that the administration amendment or the administration's revisions to their budget as proposed in February will probably be released in the next few days, sometime next week. So what I'll focus on today is what we believe we will see in terms of what motivates the changes to the budget, and then maybe vulnerabilities would be the way that I would describe it, where we think we might have some exposure. So what I'll do is start with a picture. I like pictures. Just for clarification's sake, all these numbers are negative numbers. So we start at 0 at the top. The budget for the current year, the budget that was proposed for the current year and for next year, starts off on the belief that we would undercollect general fund revenues by over $116 million. So when the governor introduced his budget in February, at that point in time, they believed there'd be an undercollection of current year revenues. And as you might imagine, if you undercollect this year, that means your base going forward is that much lower. What is developed through February, and these are actuals through February, that shortfall is really $143 million greater than what they expected. The total amount year to date is almost $260 million. This isn't projecting out into the future, and in all candor, it can improve. It can further deteriorate. So there's a way for it to move up and down. But given that we're 7 years into the state's fiscal year, the opportunity to recover $259 million is probably, that opportunity is probably remote. Just for the board's information, this is primarily driven in one area. Our franchise and excise taxes are coming in at 22%, almost a quarter under the budget estimate. We're under where we were collecting last year. That number is over $215 million of this whole shortfall is accounted for there. The sales tax is also under collecting about, as I recall, $30-some million, but that as a share of the estimate, they're within 1% of hitting the estimate. So that number is holding up pretty well. It's really a phenomenon of our franchise and excise tax. The next slide is really the Chancellor's slide. If he chooses to speak to this one, it is a beautiful slide, but it is beyond my ability to explain. Or my willingness to explain.
Yeah, well, let's get that right. Yeah. Now, what I wanted to do is take a few minutes, and I think we're running pretty good in terms of schedule right now, and I won't take a long time with this, but I just think it's important. I think it's important to understand not only our immediate challenge, which is, as Dale said, undercollection versus estimate. The kind of the unsettling thing about the excise tax is it's not just undercollected versus estimates. We are 14% or though below last year's collection level. So it's not a matter of just estimating being too optimistic in the estimate and not achieving that. There is an actual decline in the excise tax. And what this chart shows, some of you have seen this before, but over a long period of time, beginning in 1970 through the most recent 2012 year, or through 2012, it shows a couple of really interesting and I think important things. First is that red line. The red line across the page represents the growth in the state's economy since 1970. And it's measured by personal income. It could just as well be measured by gross domestic product, or Tennessee's share of the gross domestic product of the country. The line would look identical. Personal income, total personal income growth is frequently used as a way to gauge the size of an economy and changes from year to year. The line that tracks it is kind of the dark solid line, represents the growth over that same period in state-financed state expenditures, taxes. Now, it's called tax collections in Tennessee. Our history has been that a tax collected is a tax spent. You look at revenue expenditure numbers, and they will be roughly the same over any given period of time. So what is interesting about that line, I think, is that since 1970, state-financed state expenditures have grown at almost identical rate as the economy as a whole has grown, suggesting that there is a relationship, that as the economy grows, as the state grows, the demand for state services grows along with it. And what you see in this line is there are periods where gaps emerge. And generally, in those periods where gaps emerge, you will see a green line up and down the page. Those green lines represent increases in the sales tax rate since 1970, suggesting that in order to kind of maintain this historical relationship between the growth in the state's economy and the growth in state-financed state spending for services, it's been necessary to raise tax rates 5 times since 1970. Now, you notice that the gaps between those raises have gotten a little bit, increases have gotten a little bit longer. The last was in 2012. But you also notice that the blue line representing tax collections actually grew a little faster than the state's economy during several of those years. Well, if you look behind that and you say, well, how could that be? Well, part of the reason, probably most of the reason, was there was a series of incremental tax adjustments during that period of time that were called the Technical Correction Bill. Each year, a bill would be introduced by the Department of Revenue into the legislative process that would make certain technical corrections in the excise tax and the corporate taxes and some other stuff too, but mostly the corporate taxes that closed loopholes or avoided loopholes that were going to be exploited as corporations do what they should do, and that is try to manage their tax liability within the law to the maximum extent possible. So even in those years where there wasn't a major increase in tax rates, there were a series of tax increases that kind of kept us in sync over time. Well, you can see that the Great Recession, 2007-8, you saw a reversal of that trend, but a gap exists that really is not being closed. If you look at over to the far right-hand side, the value of that gap, had we stayed current with the growth in the state's economy, the difference in collection would be something on the order of $1 billion or so. So arguably, we're about $1 billion behind the curve, the historical curve that we have experienced in Tennessee. Now, we didn't intentionally. I say that I've been here since the second green line. There was no intentional linkage between personal income or the state's economic growth and state spending. I mean, it wasn't as though the folks who were working on the budget and Vice Chancellor Sims and I had opportunity to work on many of the budgets represented by the years on this chart. There was no purposeful linkage saying, well, economy's grown this much, so therefore we got to grow state spending by this much. It's a natural relationship. It is a natural relationship that has occurred over a long period of time in a state that throughout this entire period has been a very low-tax state. So it's not as though there's been a significant change in culture in terms of being high tax, low tax. We have been a very low tax state during that entire period. So the point of this is simply this. As we think about our immediate problem, and the excise tax, sales tax kind of flattened out a little bit now, we do have a problem this year, but structurally we have a challenge in Tennessee as to how we're going to deal with the financial pressures to do the things we need to do in an environment where, frankly, there's not a lot of interest or activity around, well, what's that next tax increase going to look like? I mean, nobody's talking about that. But for us, and the reason that we bring this to you is just to kind of put you on notice, if you will, that this year's struggle in funding the outcome-based funding formula, we hope improves next year. And certainly there's a strong commitment based on what the governor told us yesterday and what he said repeatedly, and the whole conversation, really over the last 2 years about Drive to 55 and the need to really focus on post-secondary education attainment as the key to the state's economic future. It's going to be tough. It's going to be a challenging environment as we think about how we go forward and accomplish the things that we want to accomplish. That then will enter into the conversations that we'll have later today and later in the year about fees and fee increases and trying to generate revenues in order to continue the phenomenal work that is being done by our institutions in terms of focusing on student success. So anyway, I just felt called to share with y'all a little information about that as we think about the current budget, but also as we think about going forward. So,
Ditto.
So Chancellor, did you just say that things are going to get tighter and tighter and tighter? That's what you just said?
Yeah, it's not going to get a lot easier. Now, the allocation decisions that are made by those who have to, it's my good fortune to no longer be part of a group that has to figure it out and how you fund the entire state budget when you don't have enough money to do what you want to do. Used to do that, don't have to do that anymore. But it is going to get tougher. And it suggests to me, Regent Freeman, that one of the things that we need to do, we talked about this a little bit the other day in the committee chairs meeting, is somehow we got to convey to the public at large and to decision makers at state and local levels how critical the post-secondary education mission is to the state's future, so that it becomes one of those items that automatically is a first call against revenue. I mean, we do that with the BEP. I mean, we fully fund the basic education program, the K-12 program in Tennessee every year, and have consistently since the early 80s, I guess, or early 90s. And it's in part because of the court cases and the fear of going back to the court and getting held unconstitutional. But it's really about, I like to believe, and I think it's true, it's really about we recognize that we have to do that. I mean, the state's future depends on us doing that. We all have to figure out how to elevate the conversation about post-secondary education to the level where it is clear that this is one of those things that is the priority. Arguably, priorities get funded. Now, it doesn't mean that if it doesn't get funded, that people don't care about it. It's just that the top priorities will get funded. So it's really, I think, incumbent on us to figure out how to message that, how to carry that, how to convey that, because I believe, and I think all of us in this room probably would sign up for the belief that educating our workforce, educating our citizenry, not just for skills development, but for cultural competence and social competence and all the things that come along with a well-educated population, that is critical to our future to do that. So it's a messaging issue in part.
I'm very interested. I am very interested in your chart because it seems to be saying that a tax increase ties those two lines together.
Sure. If there were another tax increase, tax rate increase, something happening, or whatever, new tax, whatever, we know when it's not going to be, so it's not about that. But yeah.
But they're going to get further and further separated.
Yes.
You think?
Yes. Yeah. Based on our history, based on a fairly long history, those numbers are going to
And what's the blue dash line?
Well, the blue dash line is where revenues would have been absent those increases.
I got you.
Yeah, thanks for asking that, because I'd forgotten that.
Yeah,
I got carried away.
Left that out.
Good. All right. So anyway.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I may, just
one
on
more question.
Yeah, sure.
What's the delta between the red line and the blue line over here to the far right?
It's about $1 billion.
$1 billion.
Just to mention, the tax system that we have is a marvelous tax system in many ways, but it is vulnerable to relocation. You can relocate services other places. Internet sales is in many respects an assault upon our sales tax system. So when you see those lines diverge, that is part of the reason you see them diverge. Rate adjustments end up driving sales, particularly sales tax rate adjustments, drive sales other places where they're not taxable. So almost any strategy you employ, there's a downside to it. At tackling tax strategies that businesses employ, which are legitimate tax strategies, that has a potential effect on economic recruitment and development activities. So it's a system that is rife with having to choose, with challenges, with choosing the best course of action among many that are not very good.
It sounds like somebody's figured out how to manipulate the franchise excise taxes
Sure.
over the past couple of years.
And certainly part of what is part of what is happening is the practitioners, tax attorneys who that's their job, is to figure out how to manage the tax liability for corporations. You know, in Tennessee, small personally held corporations, LLCs and other privately held corporations, you know, generally they don't pay excise tax. They don't pay excise tax as a corporate profits tax. You don't pay that unless you just choose to. Because you can manage that liability by expensing, bonusing, compensation, whatever.
Paying out of payroll.
Yeah, payroll. That's right. You know, publicly held corporations don't have that same flexibility, but they do have the ability to deploy a lot of smart people to figure out how to minimize their tax liability. And clearly that is part of what's going on. And nationally, profits are up. I mean, well, it's not huge, but you know, corporate profits are actually doing pretty well, certainly by the last 4 or 5 year standards. But the excise tax is declining, and part of that's because companies are making adjustments for prior period payments. Part of it, though, I think, is because companies have figured out a way to legally, avoid a tax liability in Tennessee by shifting things to other states or shifting things around. So that has been the history of the corporate taxes for forever. I mean, it's a chase. You know, it's a game. You chase. You know, chase the last thing or the next thing.
So, Chancellor, I'll try to get us back on topic, but the good news for attorneys in the room is you get a quarter of an hour of CLE for setting through this. So.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm glad we're back on topic. Yeah. I look forward to the next topic. Go ahead.
No, it's good grounding for us to understand.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, before we move on, if I can move back the slide, $260 million.
So I get to explain that one again then?
You can, yeah. We'll run back through it one more time. I think we'll take a vote first. $260 million, press reports in the last couple of days. I mean, how does this get addressed? It's out there in the press. Governor Ramsey was asked about this yesterday in his press availability. He's expressed an interest in not looking at a technique where you look at hundreds of items and take little haircuts off hundreds of items. He's thinking, look at big ticket items. He mentioned COLAs. And there's, in terms of cost of living adjustments and other salary adjustments, my recollection is $60 million or so of that in the governor's proposed budget. He also mentioned our investment in higher education. Now, higher education, about $24 million between us and UT was the number. So just as we think about what may be in the offing, what we're likely to hear in the next few days is some consideration is going to be given, I think, to the dollars that have already been allocated to us. If I can move us on then up to, let's skip by the Chancellor's slide. I apologize, folks in the room. This is a little bit hard to read, maybe for many of you. This is the budget as introduced. It's a high-level summary. It shows you our academic formula units. Those are our universities, community colleges, and TCATs that we've shown them to you separately. As you move to the right-hand side, a group that we call non-formula units, those are like the medical school at East Tennessee State, the research units at TSU, administrative units primarily here in the central office. So you get a feel of where those dollars were. That first line, outcome adjustments, which is a negative for our institutions of $5.7 million, that is baked into the governor's recommendation. That was a base adjustment that they've already proposed be made, so any new money is on top of that. But as a group, our institutions under this budget take about a $5.7 million reduction. Not evenly distributed across institutions, but 5.7. The second line, new outcome funding, this is the funding that the administration has recommended to fund the new outcomes. What your presidents have talked to you today about how we've grown the number of graduates, the number of credentials, we've increased retention, et cetera. This was the amount of money that was built into the formula to recognize that. Now, that $6.6 million number, the recommendation from the Higher Education Commission to accomplish that was, I want to make sure I get my numbers right here. I believe it was, for our system, a total of $21 million. Pardon me for, there are too many numbers jumping around. So we've gotten about 6.6 or proposed 6.6 out of $21 million. You go on down the chart, other cost increases. There's really not funding for a COLA for higher education. There is funding. The state participates in insurance premium increases, so there's a little over $7 million for the system in terms of health insurance increases. When you get to that bottom line, far right-hand column, on a net basis, our system is currently slated under the recommendations to receive about $8.9 million in additional funding. Given the press reports, I guess I'll just leave it with what I have heard from Governor Ramsey's availability. He would be suggesting that we ought to look at that new outcome funding line and eliminate that line to pick up that $6.6 million, really all the way across $7.3 million, including our non-formula units. The health insurance line is certainly a line that it's not unheard of for the legislature to direct the State Insurance Committee, the group that we are required by law to participate in terms of health benefits. It's not unheard of for them to direct that the committee adjust the benefit structure so that no rate increase is required. What that means from a practical standpoint is shifting of cost from the plan to individuals that use the plan. So there are ramifications to all these choices. I think this is probably where maybe Dr. DiPietro, someone said yesterday, there are lots of choices and every choice is a compelling choice when it comes to this time of year. It's not that there are things that are bad or things that are good and you can clearly define which is which. All of these needs are compelling needs when they start looking at the overall budget, and it becomes a matter of priorities. The next chart, which is even busier than the first one, I'm going to ask you to focus just on column D for a minute. The blue area of the chart represents the governor's recommendations. The gray area on the left-hand side is what the Higher Education Commission actually recommended. So if you're looking at column D, which is that first one in the blue area, those are the adjustments that total that $5.6 million that are essentially baked into the base budget. For our institutions, you can see again that those adjustments are not equally distributed. They are distributed basically on the basis of relative changes in outcomes. In terms of what that means, we run from a high of an increase of a little over 5% at one institution. If that ended up happening, just the blue column, we have institutions that will lose upwards of 3.5–4% if that is all that happens. So a budget, a final budget that ends up with no new money for our system, we will have a range of results at our institutions that will represent a challenge for our presidents and their staffs to manage into the new year. Column E This is the funding that the governor recommended that totals $6.6 million. If that funding were provided, you can tell by looking at that proposed change column F that we still have a number of institutions that would receive less in next year's budget in terms of recurring dollars than they do in this year's budget. But those numbers are significantly less than they would receive if there's no new money. Yes, sir. I thought you asked all your questions to Dr. Odom. I apologize.
So in column D, in the gray section, the institutions that have the red, are those outcome adjustments based on some type of performance?
Yes, it is all about performance.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. If I can, what happens though with column D, the people that are losing money, some of them would lose money under any circumstance. But what's happening with a zero-sum game, and that's what we're talking about with column D, is the only way that institutions that improve their outcomes faster get any money is by those who didn't improve as fast taking money away from them. Dr. Rhoda is here, and I don't mean to, I think his staff, they wouldn't agree with this characterization, but it's almost a Robin Hood approach. In order to reward those that move faster, we're taking away from those that either decline slightly or did not improve as fast as the average, basically.
Right.
You would not characterize it that way. Yeah.
We could be making progress, but it's not as
Rapid.
Under those circumstances, you would not.
So if you're a university president and you see red, you've got some work to do.
Yep.
I mean, that's just
correct.
That's how it works.
In our business, just like your business, if it's a red number surrounded by parentheses, it's usually not positive.
Not a good thing. And Dale, you might point out that if we put the University of Tennessee institutions at the bottom of column D and added it all up, it would come to zero.
Yeah.
It truly is a zero-sum proposition. We just don't have UT on there.
Yeah.
So UT institutions, the three universities at UT, in the aggregate would have a net positive of $5,691,000. And that is simply due to the fact that, like Austin P, like Middle, like some of the other schools you see there, they had growth in their outcomes sufficient to be able to, in a reallocation exercise, to benefit and positive. That number, if the same thing had happened last year, you would have seen a negative number at the UT institutions that would have shifted money back up into the Board of
Not that
Regents.
we're competing with UT, but it looks like we're losing.
Well, what happens is and that's an excellent point, because what happens is in a zero-sum proposition, you are competing because you suddenly are someone's success is coming at someone else's expense. And when the funding formula isn't funded, when the outcomes aren't funded, that's what happens. And one of the comments that Dr. DiPietro made yesterday, and I've reinforced and wholeheartedly concur in, is that, for now, this is a tough year. Next year may or may not be better. We think the attempt is going to be by the administration to make it better. I'm convinced that they will do everything they can. But if this is kind of the recurring way things work, then getting everybody in the room together to help each other figure out how to do a better job is going to be a much more difficult proposition. If it's all a zero-sum kind of deal. So that's the reality.
THEC set this up.
THEC developed the formula, but with the expectation, I think it's fair to say, that the budget would be funded. When Complete College Tennessee Act passed, this was the new paradigm. This was shifting. It was built to be funded, and I think when the legislature adopted it, I think there was a recognition that this was a new day, a new deal.
So I'm trying to understand this. If they were funded, then the institutions that were moving slow would be at 0. They
Or
would not-
actually, it would be
column C.
Everybody, okay, I got you.
It would be column C. If the column C would be the result if the formula were full, if the outcome-based formula were fully funded, and you see a few negatives, fairly small, but relative to the other. But those reflect the net effect in outcomes and out-of-state tuition and a couple other things that plays through this.
Chancellor, do we agree with the outcome formula? Does it drive what we as
Absolutely.
an institution want?
Absolutely.
I mean, are the outcomes the right outcomes? That's what I'm asking.
Yes, the outcomes and at some point that'd be a good thing to revisit. I think with the full board to go through that. We do that periodically, but the outcomes are very much driven around student success, progression, completion. For universities, research and externally funded service is one of the outcomes because research is important at the four-year institution area in that way. The job placement rates for our community colleges, one of the outcomes. Degrees per 100 FTEs, kind of an efficiency measure, is one of the outcomes. So yes, I would say the outcomes are the right things. Those are the things that THEC, through a very open and participatory process, developed as being representative of what the state needs from the public higher education system. Here are the things we need you to focus on. Here are the things that we're going to pay for, and they are the right things. And we can argue a little bit. We frequently argue and whine about everything, but we can we can argue about whether the weights are exactly right, or maybe one of the outcomes could be different than it is. But generally, I think we're all committed to the notion that yes, we're measuring the right thing. If we can just fund it, we can make tremendous strides.
You have Regents Duckett
Sure.
and Grissom.
Under column D, if it is not fully funded, help me understand, I think I heard a comment where it puts our institutions in competition with UT institutions. I thought we all were in one pool.
And that is it. We are in one pool. So I think what the Chancellor is saying, column D, if we extended it down and included the UT institutions, you would see that they are gaining $5.691 million.
But it's just because they performed better.
It's because they performed at a greater pace than we did.
But it not only puts the systems in competition with each other, it puts individual institutions.
That's really the point I was trying to bring home, is that it's all of our institutions, whether they're UT or Board of Regents institutions, are competing.
Right. Regent, it may not be necessarily the appropriate place, but you can imagine we are asking institutions to share best practices across systems, within systems, across sectors. The difficulty of convincing people to do that is if they share their best idea with a sister institution or, heaven forbid, with a competitor in another system, and they implement that, and it comes at that institution's expense. The whole conversation about collaboration to arrive at a state goal becomes a much different, I think Chancellor said, much different conversation. It will be difficult to encourage people to share and truly collaborate. Transfer pathways between systems, one of the reasons that works is because the belief is everybody can benefit by those pathways being in place. It's good for the student. It doesn't come at the detriment of institutions. Zero-sum games come at the expense of damaging that incentive system.
I'm going to ask you a question that you probably can't answer, so I'll just say it up front. We're looking at a chart right now that's still anticipating funding. Have you, even though it's just Senator Ramsey that said maybe that goes away, what happens?
That's column D.
Yeah.
That is D.
That is
D is the column if it's totally gone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's why I wanted to make sure. Okay.
Yeah. At this point in time, I would say, Chancellor may differ, I would say column F is the best we can hope for, which is the administration recommendation is adopted without changes to higher education.
Yeah, one of the things, and Dave I don't know whether David was going to talk about the appropriation bill or not as part of the legislative update, but one of the things we have asked for legislative sponsors to do on our behalf is to put language in the appropriation bill that, well, first of all, we ask them to try to find $29.6 million to fully fund the formula. But short of being able to do that, we've asked them to put language in the appropriation bill that would say if at the end of the year we find that the revenue problem wasn't as bad as the budget ends up being adopted based upon, that any additional recurring revenues that are identified would be used to fund as much of the TEC outcome-based formula as possible. So it'd be pro-rata funding. And sometimes that can happen. I mean, the big excise tax month is next month. And it'll be the first week and a half or so into May when we really know what the excise tax, most companies are on a calendar year, fiscal year, and they have till April 15th to file their excise tax return, or April 1st, or sometime along there. Now, they get extensions, and a lot of them do, but that's the big month for excise tax. So if things turn around and it comes in stronger than this revised budget's likely to assume that's going to be talked about next week, then there could be some increase in recurring revenue. Our request to them would be, if that happens, direct it toward funding THEC's recommendation. And then secondly, that amendment would also establish a legislative intent that as the governor develops the next budget, that it's a legislative intent that they use, I can't remember exact words that were used, but best efforts to fully fund the THEC outcome-based formula.
Is the excise tax number we're looking at now, we don't need to go back to your chart, it's kind of interesting, but is that the trend? I mean, are we sitting here hoping, but probably it's not going to happen?
Yes.
That's what I thought.
Yep.
I think what the Chancellor's saying, my best hope is really that language makes it in and not that the blue columns come into play.
Yeah.
And Madam Chair, I apologize because this has gone on probably longer than it was warranted. I'll wrap up with
your part.
My part. Your part is, you never go on. The next chart is just, again, a summary of our capital outlay. The Vol State Building, the Columbia State Campus at Williamson County, a total of almost $62 million in state funding for capital outlay. Capital maintenance, a little over $24 million. So $86 million in capital money. I should have looked at it before I came down here today. This will be funded through a combination of cash or bonding authority. Bonding authority requires a recurring revenue source behind it. So I would just suggest that David and his team will be watching this, that is another place that you can go to if you're a budgeteer and you're looking at how do we close a big gap. So, Madam Chair, members,
Dale, don't they have to come up with recurring dollars instead of one-time?
Exactly. Most capital projects are funded with a combination of cash, non-recurring money, and bonding authority, but the bonds, they have to appropriate the recurring debt service, the first year debt service, which is always the highest year, the way that that Tennessee does it. So the point is, if these were fully funded, if it was $86 million and it was totally bonded, there would be somewhere around $9 million of debt service attached to it, that if they wanted recurring money, they could just cancel those projects, those items, and they could capture that $9 million.
But to close the budget whole, don't they have to close it with recurring dollars?
Yeah, and what I'm suggesting is to the degree that this is recurring, they can affect this or capital projects in general if they eliminate their bonding authority. That frees up recurring money.
And Reggie Ferris makes a good point, something I really hadn't thought much about until just now, but their hole is in the current year, and it's in next year.
Sure.
So if they undercollect $250 or $60 million this year, then they got to have the wherewithal to close the book. So even one-time expenditures with non-recurring funds may not be completely safe, and that their choice will be to recapture that and use it to close the year in, or to go to the rainy day fund, which nobody particularly wants to do if they can avoid it. So it's even worse than I thought.
Madam Chair, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Dale? Or obviously, he's close by if things come back up as David gives us his update, too.
I'm sure Dave's got a short
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman, and good afternoon to the regents.
Point of personal privilege before Vice Chancellor Gregory starts, and I apologize to the broader audience, but our esteemed Vice Chancellor Gregory provided some advice to Regent Humphreys as she began her program, so I want to extend to you that same advice as you begin your updates.
I see that. I see your serious nature too, there, Regent Duncan. So Regent Humphreys didn't. No, thank you.
Yeah.
Could I extend my welcome also to Regent Stites, and hope you enjoy your tenure. I know you will on this board. Madam Chairman, it's my privilege just to update the board on the 2014 legislative session, just by way of sort of putting this in perspective. This is year 2 of the 208th General Assembly, and as Chancellor Sims has spoke, probably within the next 2 to 3 weeks, the session will wrap up. So we're moving out of the stage of bills being in committee and beginning to look at the debate on the budget, which will take place in earnest coming this week and the following week or two. The significance of year 2 of a General Assembly means that the bills that have been introduced last year held over this year, but will terminate when the General Assembly adjourns sine die, will need to be reintroduced next year to have any life to it. First, I want to talk to you, if I could, about the Tennessee Promise. What we're now beginning to see are Governor Haslam's policy initiatives or policy levers coming in behind the drive to 55. In his State of the State address, he announced the creation of the Tennessee Promise. It has taken form in Senate Bill 2471, House Bill 2491 by Senator Norris and Representative McCormick. And I'll take just a couple of minutes to explain the components that you've seen and heard a good bit about relative to the Tennessee Promise. It is a statewide last dollar scholarship for students graduating high school who wish to then immediately enroll in a community college or Tennessee College of Applied Technology. I think it's safe to say that this program is sort of built on the foundation of the Tennessee Achieves program. If any of you have experienced that in your home county, in providing both not only financial support but also mentoring support for students who wish to enroll in a community college or Tennessee College of Applied Technology. In order to be eligible, the students, again, must enroll as they come out of high school. They must be full-time students. They must apply for the Tennessee Promise. They must fill out the FAFSA such that all other aid is in play, lottery aid, TSAA state awards are in play, Pell Grants are in play, and then what's needed on top of that in order to make tuition and mandatory fees fully funded is the goal of the award amount. So I think this is a bold initiative. The bill has not completely passed the General Assembly, although it has passed the major hurdles, which are the House Education Committees. It resides in one chamber in the Finance Committee and the other chamber in the Government Operations Committee. Also a part of the promise is the Tennessee Reconnect Scholarship, which is exclusively for the Tennessee Colleges of Applied Technology, and it creates also a statewide last dollar scholarship for independent students. And these are students who have reached their 24th birthday who desire to come back to a College of Applied Technology and receive a diploma or certificate. On the next slide, also still I'm on the promise, but some other things that are a part of the promise itself are some adjustments in the lottery award amounts, both at community colleges and universities. For community colleges, at present, the Hope Scholarship is $2,000 per year. That will be increased to $3,000 per year. The university scholarships, both at public and private institutions, are presently at $4,000 for all 4 years. The adjustment to the university scholarship is currently proposed at $3,500 for students in their freshman and sophomore year, and $4,500 for students in their juniors and senior year.
What did you say the current is?
$4,000 for all 4 years at the university.
How many for all?
4,000. I'm sorry, I'll get a little closer to the mic.
So 16,000.
Yes.
And so when you do it this way, it's
It nets out the same, assuming that a student stays for all 4 years.
Gotcha.
There is also an additional grant given to need-based students called the Aspire Grant. The Aspire Grant is currently at $1,500 for students whether they attend a university or community college. Students that are eligible for the Aspire Grant are those students who first are lottery eligible, and second of all, who are need-based. Need-based in this scenario is defined as adjusted gross income of $36,000 or less. The Aspire Grant for students choosing to go to the community college is being reduced from $1,500, or proposed to being reduced from $1,500 per year to $500 a year. It will remain at $1,500 for students attending universities. So there's an increase in the lottery award scholarship, but for Aspire students, there's a corresponding reduction in the Aspire grant. There are also a couple of adjustments being made to the lottery program itself. First is, and you've heard our TCAT directors talk for some time about students who begin with Hope scholarships and do not succeed and come then to a College of Applied Technology and are unable to receive any lottery assistance at that point. That is being eliminated such that Wilder Nafee students who have lost their hope may be able to receive a Wilder Nafee technical skills grant. Also, there's another issue. I've spoken with you in years past. I don't know if you recall this or not, but there's an adjustment being made such that students who are Hope recipients will now be allowed to receive either 120 attempted hours or 8 full-time semesters, whichever is the greater, or whichever occurs later. So, Madam Chairman, members of the board, those are the components of the Governor's Lottery, the Governor's Promise program. Next, I want to report to you, if I could, about our sunset legislation. For those of you who might be unfamiliar with that, every agency of government undergoes a periodic review and reestablishment as an agency, and this happened to be our turn, and we are sort of on the same cycle with the Higher Education Commission and the University of Tennessee, as well as the Tennessee Student Assistance Corporation. What precedes a sunset bill generally is the performance audit, and we've received our performance audit, as has the other agencies, and a bill is currently moving through the General Assembly, has already passed the House, and is set for a floor vote that would extend the Tennessee Board of Regents until 2018. Part of the performance audit identified identified findings both for the UT system, the TBR system, as well as THAC as it relates to compliance with the Complete College Act of 2010 in 2 areas, one in the areas of transfer pathways and the other in the area of dual admissions. And so there's a bill that we drafted that is currently being supported by the Higher Education Commission as well as the University of Tennessee system that fixes those audit findings, and we're hopeful that will soon pass the General Assembly as well. I wanted to point out to you a bill that has already passed and is set to become law. It's Senate Bill 975 and House Bill 1089 by Senator McNally and Representative Brooks. And this bill would require that individuals our institutions as well as those of the University of Tennessee system should not seek individual requests for funding without first having the concurrence of their institution president as well as their system head. New legislation.
So what that means is a president of a university can't go and seek funding from the legislature for his or her institution without asking.
They can do that. They need to do that with the they do need to do that with the concurrence of the chancellor.
Gotcha. Okay.
Is that what it says?
Yes.
Others as well.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, and it just talks about individuals. It doesn't talk about presidents. It just talks about any individual. Next is some legislative activity regarding in-state tuition. First is a bill that has already passed the General Assembly that would provide in-state tuition for veterans who are recipients of both the post-9/11 as well as the Montgomery GI benefits. And it would be in-state tuition regardless of where they live. However, if they come to this state, they would receive in-state tuition, but they should be seeking permanent residence within the first year of entering college here. And then the second, I think maybe you've heard a bit about this. This has been fairly widely reported. There is a bill that is moving through the General Assembly that will allow students who are U.S. citizens who have graduated from a Tennessee high school to receive in-state tuition regardless of the citizenship status of their parents. So currently we have people that are citizens of Tennessee, United States citizens, whose parents are not able to establish domicile here, who once they born here, lived here, gone to school here, and once they complete high school, if they enroll currently in a institution of public higher education, would be charged out-of-state tuition. This bill will clarify that and will allow those students to have in-state tuition. And also, you've may heard a bit about some activity in and around student activity fees. And the discussion in and around student activity fees, I think pretty much has its genesis, Madam Chairman, around the much reported Sex Week at the University of Tennessee Knoxville campus. Because of many people in the General Assembly's concern about Sex Week, it has generated legislative activity in two forms. These bills that you see on the screen in front of you, both of those appear to have died for this session. But I do want to point the substance of the bills out to you because we could see them in future years. Two bills that each relate to student fees. One would say that the allocation of student fees for student organizations would be proportional, meaning that monies collected for student organizations would go back to the organizations in the sort of a formulaic methodology, if you would. Small institutions getting a small amount of money, larger institutions getting a larger amount of the student fee. The second bill would, in essence, say no part of your student fee may be used to bring in visiting or guest speakers at public institutions. Again, both of these bills are likely not to pass. What has passed is a resolution, a joint resolution that relates directly to the University of Tennessee system, asking them to do certain activities related to student fees, and they will be undertaking those activities.
Does that include chairs of excellence? Because many of our institutions have those.
In terms of the speakers, it would only be those speakers that would have been funded out of the student organization fee fund. Next is we're seeing legislation in and around religious freedom. The bill that you see on the screen, 1185, that has was introduced last year. I do not think will ultimately be enacted this year, but it has to do with students who are in our counseling, social work, and psychology programs, and prohibiting public institutions from being able to discipline those students in any way if the student refuses to counsel a client based upon the student's religious belief. The chairman of the House Education Committee, Harry Brooks, has worked with us very carefully and has a what I'll call a companion measure, which you see as House Bill 2115 below, which in essence says to the public systems, both UT and TBR, that we'd be prohibited from adopting policies or rules that would substantially burden the students' free exercise of religion. And that is referencing back to statutory construction already on free exercise of religion. But we'll see more and more of these kind of legislation, I think, as we move forward. And then finally, Madam Chairman, just a couple of things I'd like to note, which will be discussions going forward into the summer. One relates to our colleges of education and providing training for our pre-service teachers on dyslexia. We have a very prolific dyslexia center at Middle Tennessee State University. We have dyslexia programs across our system. They are currently working together. Dr. Denley, thank you for your work in kind of pulling together the people in our institutions who are interested in promoting training in dyslexia and our colleges of education. And we'll be doing some work on that over the summer and reporting back to the General Assembly on our work. And then finally, also over the summer will be some work on looking at accessibility of electronic education materials for those individuals who have disabilities. That work will be steered by the Higher Education Commission staff, both by TBR and UT, and we'll report back to the General Assembly on that. And I close out by saying that our two regents, Regent Smith and Regent Varlin, were successfully confirmed by the Senate in this past week, and I can tell you about their experiences. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm happy for any questions.
Yes, one question. Since our Chancellor, THEC, UT, and the Commissioner of Education are all collaborating on education, in terms of the Common Core standard, where did that end up? I know what happened in the House, but the Senate.
So far, nothing has completely passed the General Assembly that would prohibit the Common Core standards from continuing to be used, or the PARC examination, which is the examination tool that is connected to the Common Core. The session's not over. There's still some activity in and around the Common Core discussions, but at present, the Common Core standards remain in place, as well as the evaluation tool.
And wouldn't necessarily be delayed 2 years?
No, not yet.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have two quick questions. Going back to the Tennessee Promise, just for clarity's sake, the last dollar scholarship will cover up to the cost of tuition and mandatory fees, not the full estimated cost of attendance, correct?
That is correct.
And then one other thing, when does a student become ineligible for that scholarship once completing graduation at a high school?
Either once completing at a high school, when do they become
when do they become ineligible?
Ineligible
how
if they do not enroll in the fall.
Okay.
Okay, and then once they become eligible, they remain eligible until the first of either 2.5 years or the successful completion of a degree, or in the case of the College of Applied Technology, a diploma.
David, did I read it well? Can't you use some of the money, even if you don't go to a TCAT or a community college, you can use a percentage of it if you go to a 4-year school? Is that correct?
You can take the Tennessee Promise and use it at a 4-year institution if that institution currently offers an associate's degree. There are about 11, possibly 12 of the independent colleges who presently have those programs. The Tennessee Board of Regents actually have 2 institutions, Austin Peay State University and TSU, who currently offer associate's degree. So a student could take the promise and enroll in those programs and receive the last dollar up to the average, which is about, I think it's about $3,619 or some such as that at a four-year institution.
Which leads me to the next question. Knowing that we have two, do we think that we're going to see other four-year schools in our system and possibly in the UT system looking at offering some type of associate degree?
I'm not positioned to answer that question. I will say this: I think you may see more in the private institutions. I think they've sort of declared that that is the case. In our system, I personally don't have a good feel for that. We've actually, in the past, moved in the other direction.
Yes.
David, can you go back to the promise?
Yes.
Go back to the legislation
Slide.
where it talked about students receiving in-state tuition,
sure,
regardless of their parents.
Yes. In-state tuition.
In-state tuition.
2115.
Yes.
Okay, so these are students who are born here.
Okay.
Okay, so that by virtue of being born here, they're citizens that most likely have lived here all their life, attended our school system. When they graduate, presently, and attempt to enroll in a public institution, they are treated as an out-of-state student because our policy relates to where the parent is domiciled. And because their parents are not domiciled in the United States, then we treat them as an out-of-state student. This legislation would overcome that, and these students would now be treated as in-state.
Is it going to make it?
I think it is. I think it is.
Good.
I think it is.
It's a good one.
Chairman, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor Gregory, for a great job. I know you and...
I can't leave. I have my note here, and I can't leave. I do this every time, but I just, no, listen, I got to say, the lady that's sitting behind me, Ginger Hauser, has done a fantastic job this year. And I should have said that the first thing out of my mouth. I just want you to acknowledge how well she's done in sort of leading our efforts this year. Sorry about that.
That's all right. Well done. And thank you, Ginger. So I know you guys have been haunting the halls up there for the last few weeks, so all you do is much appreciated. Folks, we are now moving into our action items, of which we have 10 this afternoon. And the first is an exciting one, and that is the approval of a new director at our TCAT Morristown. Chancellor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Due to the retirement that we've talked about previously of Lynn Elkins from the position of director at the TCAT Morristown on December 31, 2013, a search was opened and the criteria for the position was published and advertised in November. There were 12 members of the search committee, including Regent Varlin, Vice Chancellor King, Dr. Wade McCamey from Walter State, representatives from the TCAT Morristown faculty, staff, students, and the lead institution, and representatives of the TCAT's Morristown's General Advisory Committee. A pool of 44 applicants was received via our system. The search committee met on January 14th, January 27th, and February 26th to review the applicants, select candidates for interview, and conduct the interviews. After careful review of the applicants and based on the interviews and input from the Search Advisory Committee, Mr. Jerry Patton is being recommended for appointment as TCAT Morristown Director. If approved, his appointment would be effective April 1st, 2014. Jerry started his career with the Tennessee Board of Regents at Walter State Community College as their JTPA, which was the Federal Job Program counselor, from 1988 to 1994. He then served as Student Services Coordinator at TCAT Morristown from 94 to 2000. He was director of the TCAT Elizabethton from 2000 to 2009 when he retired. He retired as director on June 30, 2009. During his retirement, he continued to work. He served as assistant director at TCAT Knoxville on a part-time or on a temporary appointment basis, I guess, our so-called 120-day plan, from February 2013 to December 2013 on such a contract. He came out of retirement to serve as the interim director at TCAT Morristown in January 2014, and he's presently serving in that interim role. Madam Chair, it is without any hesitation at all that I wholeheartedly recommend to you that Jerry Patton be named the director of the TCAT Morristown.
Thank you, Chancellor. Having heard the Chancellor's recommendation, do we have a motion to approve?
Yes, so moved.
Thank you. Regent Varlin, a second?
Second.
Thank you. I'm not sure, Mary, who did we record on that for the second? Okay.
Regent Stites.
There, okay. Any discussion?
I would just like to say that Jerry has done an absolutely outstanding job throughout his career, but especially in helping in Knoxville and now taking over in Morristown. He's already begun to do wonderful work, and we're just very lucky to have the opportunity to hire him back and have him fulfill this position, and we're just thrilled to have you, Jerry.
Thank you. Oh, there we Exactly. Now, before you stand, exactly. We need to vote. So having heard the Chancellor's recommendation and Regent Varlin's endorsement as well, if there is no further discussion, this is a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Jerry, please stand. Let us congratulate you again. Thank you, sir. We look forward to working with you on yet another successful round here. So thank you and welcome back. We now have before us some proposed TCAT program terminations, modifications, some new technical program implementations. Vice Chancellor King, help us out here.
Oh. Okay. And it is a pleasure to have Jerry back. It really is. The TCAT Morristown staff questioned why it was taking me so long to appoint an interim there, because I was afraid Jerry would say no if I asked him. And it was really nice that he went ahead and went full speed and take the job, and I think he'll be an asset to that system. Madam Chair, I'd like to take a special thanks to Regent Stites and Regent Ferris for attending the Skills USA board meeting dinner the other night. It really gave one of the most powerful boards in the country as far as industries related, because Skills USA is a 300,000 student organization with a board made up of CEOs and vice presidents of Lowe's, Snap-on, people like that. So they were a chance to see that our board and Chancellor Morgan, and we also had Representative Brooks and Senator Tracy as well, to see the support that this board has for the TCAT system. And once again, we thank you, Regent Ferris and Regent Stites, for attending. Last week was a huge week for the TCAT system when it comes to before I do program proposals. We had campuses were shut down for a week for staff development from Elizabethton to Memphis. And as a result of that, as it leads into programs, and I think Regent Freeman's comments about how we determine what we offer in programs is because of meetings like that dealing with industry. We had 235 faculty members receive national certifications last week alone. So it was really an impressive event, and in developing through the NIM certification and the National Coalition of Certification Centers. So it's exciting time. Madam Chair, we have 5 program proposals to present to you for approval today. Please note that we had a mistake on a transmittal that was sent to you. The 5th proposal, which is for TCAT Athens, was listed as a modification, but actually it's a program implementation. And that's how it will be presented today. These proposals will allow the colleges of applied technology to be more responsive to the needs of students, business, and industries. The first proposal is to implement an online drafting CAD technology program at Murfreesboro. This program will be offered online and require students to attend campus at least 4 hours a week. The primary purpose of the program is for reentry employment into drafting and CAD field. based on the Rutherford County Chamber and local workforce surveys. Drafting is in high demand. And what's interesting, this new format will enable more students to attend, but at the same time will enhance, I think, completion with having that modified online component. You know, that student has to come in on campus at least some point, and that gives the faculty a chance to do face-to-face working with them. And I think it's a problem with online. Sometimes you don't get to see the students face-to-face, and I think this will enhance that quite a bit. So I'm excited about looking, and I think you'll see more things like that in the future coming. The second proposal is to implement a statewide certified nursing assistance program. This program will be 120 clock hours in length. The primary purpose is to train students for gainful employment for jobs in nursing home health agencies, and physician offices. According to the Department of Labor and Workforce Development, the outlook for allied health fields is favorable. I think we know a lot of the population is getting older, so we're all going to look forward to training quality people for this field. The next proposal is to implement a diesel technology program at Livingston. The program will provide students with technical instruction and skill development and enable them to enter employment in trucking, construction, agricultural implement, and other related fields as technicians. This program will prepare students to set for the ASC certification in diesel mechanics. The growth rate is positive, and there are more job openings expected annually than there are training completers in the last recent years. Employment in the diesel service technicians and mechanics field is expected to grow about 10% from 2012 to 2022. Someone has to keep those trucks running up and down that interstate. The fourth proposal is to implement a patient care program at Nashville. The primary purpose is to train students for entry-level allied health positions. Due to the growth of an aging U.S. population, there's an increasing number of healthcare facilities in need of support workers, especially patient care technicians. Now, the last proposal is to implement an electromechanical technology program at Athens. The curriculum will be 1,728 hours in length, with various exit points along the way, with a diploma as an electromechanical technician. Based on industry input, the electromechanical technology program will incorporate more electrical skills than previously offered. This change will better meet the needs of the service area and increase employment opportunities. The program will also articulate well into Cleveland State's industrial programs as well. Madam Chairperson, these proposals have been reviewed by the staff quite carefully, and I request the approval.
Sir, well done as always. A motion to approve. Thank you, Regent Ferris. A second. Regent Varlin, thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dr. Denley, you have two items, I believe, new university degree programs and some revisions to our student disciplinary policies.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Madam Vice Chair and members of the board, I have 4 new degrees to propose to you today. To begin with degrees at the bachelor's level, there's a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in theater and dance with concentrations in musical theater design, acting, directing, and dance, and also a Bachelor of Arts degree in theater of dance with concentrations in dance design and acting and directing. Both of those degrees will be housed at Austin Peay State University and would be effective in fall 2015. The BFA program will prepare students who will be admitted via audition or portfolio review for professional practice in the worlds of theater and dance in a rigorous training environment that will incorporate both practice and scholarship while stressing theoretical, pedagogical, and historic aspects of theater and dance. The BA program will prepare students for the professional worlds of theater and dance, but in a liberal arts environment that will incorporate both practice and scholarship, and is designed to then be accompanied by a second major or 1 or 2 other minors. Both of these programs fit well with the Center of Excellence in Creative Arts, which is housed at Austin Peay State University. At the master's level, I have 2 master's degrees to bring to you today. The first is a Master of Science degree in Engineering Technology that will also be housed at Austin Peay State University. That would be effective in fall 2015 and would provide advanced knowledge and skill needed by people in technical careers, serving in the military, or working for companies located in industries throughout the region to advance to leadership positions in industry. The curriculum is built on a foundation of theoretical and applied concepts related to practical problems in industry. And a unique element of these programs will be the use of rapid prototyping and additive manufacturing technology. That's 3D printing, and I think has got some recent press. And the second master's degree is at East Tennessee State University in digital marketing. And this degree is the product of collaboration across 2 colleges at ETSU, the College of Business and Technology and the College of Liberal Arts, and would encompass a cutting-edge, innovative curriculum and learning environment that's important for the university to maintain its progressive and forward-thinking reputation. It's an integral part of producing productive, knowledgeable graduates who will be prepared for digital marketing in the 21st century. So all 4 of these programs have been through rigorous review by the Office of Academic Affairs, and I move approval.
Very good.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
How much does it cost to offer a new degree?
Yeah, so that's a very, that's sort of how long is a piece of string, to be honest with you. Some degrees cost dramatically more than others.
In the cases of the ones we just talked about.
Mm-hmm. Actually, all of these degrees will be paid for by revenues to the institution and by currently existing resources. But it really, you can imagine that to implement a degree in theater and dance is going to be rather different from implementing a master's degree in 3D printing.
I was just trying to get my my head around you offering a new degree, adding more expenses, and as we talked about the tax revenue shrinking and the amount of dollars going to the universities becoming smaller, just trying to get my mind around how much of this can we do?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So let me think about it like this. So students who are coming to all of our institutions are going to depend on a gradually and hopefully more rapidly increasing student body. To do that, some of that is looking at the programs which we currently have and finding ways to do those programs more effectively and efficiently. Sometimes it's about taking programs that we currently have and realizing there's ways to specialize them. Actually, the degree in theater and dance at Austin Peay is currently a program which is a concentration as part of their communications program. So there are faculty who are already on that campus who have specialty in theater and also in dance. But those students, when they graduate, it doesn't say a bachelor's degree in theater and dance. It says a bachelor's degree in communication. And so there's a sort of a currency in the marketplace argument that when students then want to use their degree, they have to explain to a potential employer why it says communication on their degree and not theater and dance.
So we don't know what it costs.
No, we do. Actually, and in the documents that you've been supplied, there's a very detailed budget for each of these degrees that explains on an ongoing basis. It's part of the planning process that goes through the approval of these degrees, that there has to be an overall budget of both implementation and also a forecast over the first 5 years of how many students it would be expected to serve, how many new faculty would have to be hired, and also new equipment and new space needs that would be needed. So we do, yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome.
I should have read my documentation.
No, that's fine. It's a thick packet. So, yeah.
Christian, I would also add, we also from time to time will eliminate various programs based on the fact that, you know, the need is not there and the recommendation has come from the institutions, but that's part of that deliberative review process that we go through.
Yes, thank you. Actually, right now, we are just beginning a review of so-called low-producing programs which at some point were understood to have a real need, and now we can go through and see whether they really do actually make sense in modern education.
So is there a P&L for programs?
A P&L, I'm sorry.
Profit and loss. Is there a profit and loss for programs?
Yeah, actually, and this is much more real and present in the new environment of performance-based funding, because of the fact that now institutions are not awarded simply about enrollment, but are are rewarded because of generating new degrees. It's now not in any institution's interest to create programs which will not be productive and will not create new graduates in an effective way. So and that's a very nuanced kind of idea, institution by institution.
So if I'm a university, I'm sorry to keep asking.
No,
this
it's
question,
okay. This
but
is
if
good
I'm a
discussion.
university president and I know which programs bring in the most money, it's the wrong way of thinking about it. But
No, it's not. Go ahead.
So if I got my list of programs that bring in the most money, I know where to put my advertising to attract the person to that program. Is it that scientific what you guys are doing now as you recruit for students to come to school? Because I imagine there are some programs that I'm losing money on that I don't want to recruit anybody in, so that eventually I can shut that down and recruit kids into the program that. And I hate to use the profit word in here. I know it's the state government. I hate to use profit, but the
Operating margin.
Operating margin. recruit the programs that have a higher operating margin.
So here's the. I guess here's the. Well, so here's the rub. It's often the case that the programs that have a lower operating margin are also programs that have enormous currency. So, for instance, I think it's well known that there is a nationwide and certainly regional need for high-quality nurses. A nursing program is an extraordinarily expensive program to run. So these decisions are actually really very nuanced because there's a real difference between trying to run a broad-scale university that offers a full spectrum of different programs, understanding that some of those programs will be vastly more expensive to run than others. But if we're about trying to create an educated workforce, then we need them all.
But isn't that also the reason we'll put certain fees on certain courses?
Sometimes.
Like we're talking about.
Sometimes.
So that because they're more expensive, that we want to make sure those students are entering it, they pick up some of the extra cost that goes with it, rather than spreading across the whole institution.
Yes,
correct?
that's true. Sometimes, yes.
Regent Stites?
The question I have is, if I'm running a university and I have an accredited course, it's accredited by the group that is for that specific kind of course, recognized across the United States.
Yes, sir.
My curricula is going to be such that the accrediting organization is going to have some say in that, so you get a level of professionalism coming out of that course.
Yes, we do.
And I'm competing against another university who has a course that's not accredited, and their requirements are much lower, but they can graduate a lot more people. Is there anything in the funding formula that makes allowances for the higher, more difficult courses to compete with those that are not as difficult, but yet they put more diplomas out there?
So it's actually the case in both our system and in the UT system that if there is an accreditation that's available, then every program has to go through it. And if it isn't available, then, and actually it is also the case that in addition to that we have an academic audit process where on a periodic basis each academic program is reviewed to make sure of its rigor. So actually all of the programs, of these three programs that I proposed today, and each of them would not be eligible for accreditation until they graduate their first class. It's kind of the typical way that accreditations work. Both the BFA and BA in theater and dance would go through accreditation, I believe, in 2018-19 would be the first one. The Masters of Science in Engineering Tech, actually currently ABET doesn't accredit master's programs, but the curriculum has been the bachelor's degree program there has recently been ABET accredited, and so they've constructed the curriculum of this master's degree to meet what they anticipate to be the requirements of accreditation when accreditation becomes available. And the Masters of Science in Digital Marketing will go through accreditation through AACSB, and so has been constructed with that in mind. Yeah. Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Do we have a motion to approve the recommendation?
So moved.
Thank you, Regent Thomas. Second from Regent Roddy. Any further discussion? Good discussion, good questions. Thank you for educating us. That having been said, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much. Motion carries.
Thank you, ma'am.
And now we will move to student disciplinary policies.
Indeed. So before you, I bring 10 revisions to student disciplinary policies. So actually back in 2011, the board approved the existence of separate student disciplinary policies. Up until then, we were governed by one universal policy that really meant that making minor changes was a very protracted process. And so now it is the ability of each individual campus to make nuanced revisions to that student discipline policy. The 10 that are before you, and maybe I give a preference. I can go through one by one, or I can sum up the flavor in general. Which would be your preference?
I think a summary and flavor would be lovely.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
So the flavor of these really falls into three main categories. The first category is changing in nomenclature and wording. That you can imagine that there are changes in position names, changes in offices that govern certain parts of discipline policies, and so changing that wording to make sure that those policies are not anachronistic is important. So that's flavor number one. Flavor number two is in understanding who governs academic discipline. And sometimes on campus, academic discipline is governed by a dean of students. Sometimes on campuses, academic discipline is governed by another body. What is the judiciary process to mete out and to view academic discipline? And there's some nuances to that. And then the third is about parking. Various different approaches to traffic and parking, changing the levels of fines or how it is that certain parking decals would or would not be displayed on campus. So those are the three main ideas.
Move approval.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. The motion, exactly. Motion to approve Regent Duckett, second from Regent Griscom. Any further discussion? This requires a roll call vote. So, Madam Secretary, would you call the roll for us, please?
Regent Duckett.
Aye.
Regent Ferris.
Aye.
Regent Freeman.
Aye.
Regent Griscom.
Aye.
Regent Humphrey.
Aye.
Regent Kisber.
Aye.
Regent Reynolds.
Aye.
Regent Roddy.
Aye.
Regent Smith.
Aye.
Regent Stites.
Aye.
Regent Thomas.
Aye.
Regent Varlin. Regent Wallace. The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Denley. Well done, as always. Thank you. Our next item is the approval of our March 11 minutes of a specially called meeting of the Finance and Business Operations Committee. That includes a recommendation on mandatory and incidental fee request, and also an approval of our ad hoc committee meeting on capital outlay and capital maintenance from March 6. Regent Ferris, I believe you'll walk us through this item.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. As you know, the March 11th special called meeting was the culmination of approximately 3 months of review by board staff and members of the Finance and Business Operations Committee of fee requests submitted by institutions. This process began in January when staff received 64 fee requests from 13 institutions. Committee members were provided information on all requests received, and a telephonic committee meeting was held on February 13th, during which these proposals were discussed. After this meeting, staff continued to work with the institutions and members to clarify fee proposals and to develop recommendations. On March 11th, staff presented its recommendations to the committee. After discussion, the committee acted to unanimously adopt the staff recommendations. I would note that several regents who are not members of this committee also participated in our meetings and contributed to our deliberations. Before you for approval today are the minutes of the March 11th, 2014 special call meeting of the Business and Finance Committee that include minutes of the March 6th, 2014 meeting of the Ad Hoc Committee on Capital Outlay, and capital maintenance, during which the committee acknowledged and approved changes to the system's disclosed project list, mandatory incidental fee requests, which would become effective in the fall of 2014, and housing fee requests, which would also become effective this fall. I move approval of those minutes.
Second. Thank you, Regent Humphrey. Any further discussion? Hearing none, this will also require a roll call vote. Madam Secretary.
Regent Duckett.
Aye.
Regent Ferris.
Aye.
Regent Freeman.
Aye.
Regent Griscom.
Aye.
Regent Humphrey.
Aye.
Regent Kisber.
Aye.
Regent Reynolds.
Aye.
Regent Roddy.
Aye.
Regent Smith. Regent Stites.
Aye.
Regent Thomas.
Aye.
Regent Varlin. Regent Wallace. The motion carries.
Thank you very much. Vice Chancellor Sims, we have some additional recommendations on mandatory and incidental fees.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for recognizing me. This item, I think we distributed material earlier this week. I apologize for the lateness of that. When the action that you just took reflected a recommendation from staff that on certain proposals where we were not ready to make a recommendation, that the board would allow us to continue working with institutions and bring forward recommendations at whatever point in time it was appropriate. This item represents recommendations on 2 of those requests. I would note that that still leaves one item where we requested more time on. It's the Walter State M-Engage fee proposal. It's a multifaceted program that we're still working through with their staff, working through diligently. It still makes a lot of sense at a staff level that we pursue it. It's a matter of nailing the details down. So I want to make sure you understand that we, at the next opportune time, hope to bring a recommendation regarding that fee. The item that's before you today, very briefly, you'll recall that we had a discussion about several institutions, community colleges wanting to eliminate application fees. Members expressed interest in that, but basically said, if we're going to do this, we need to do it in a uniform way. We need to do it in a way that brings our fee structure at community colleges closer together, not further apart. Based on that request, Dr. Nichols, I don't know whether he volunteered or agreed, but he essentially worked with the community colleges to develop such a uniform process, and that is what's before you. There are 8 community colleges that desire to eliminate their application fees. On a revenue-neutral basis, they have agreed to replace that revenue through an adjustment to their campus access fee. That sets the model going forward. If there's an institution that wants to do this in a year or 2 years, we will direct them to this method to replace their application fees. The table that's attached to your materials outlines the changes by institution. I should note that we had an error on Chattanooga State. The $1.40 in the proposed fee increase should be a $1 even. So that the total proposed fee would be $10 even, not $10.40. But with that adjustment, Madam Chair, that comes to you with the recommendation of your staff for approval.
Move the recommendation.
Thank you, Regent.
Second.
Thank you, Regent Kisber. Is there any further discussion? If not, Mary, roll call vote, please.
Regent Duckett.
Aye.
Regent Ferris.
Aye.
Regent Freeman.
Aye.
Regent Griscom.
Aye.
Regent Humphrey.
Aye.
Regent Kisber.
Aye.
Regent Reynolds.
Aye.
Regent Roddy.
Aye.
Regent Smith.
Aye.
Regent Stites.
Aye.
Regent Thomas.
Aye.
Regent Varlin. Regent Wallace. The motion carries.
Thank you. Next up, we have Vice Chancellor Nichols, who will present to us some revisions to an agreement between 2 of our community colleges.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. We have attached in your folder for you copies of the 2007 service agreement and the proposed 2014 service agreement between Nashville State and Volunteer State. The nature of the agreement is simply because when Nashville State was first created, there were some service areas that would be conflicted, and so they came up to a mutual agreement to reduce duplication of effort. Over the years, as the Nashville State and Volunteer State have come together, They have identified where many of the terms of the original agreement were no longer necessary and actually were counterproductive for student growth and student success. So what you have in front of you today is basically an agreement between the two colleges and the presidents permitting the duplication of programs for either college as long as it meets existing TBR policies and procedures. And then secondly, both colleges are looking to expand their campuses within their service areas. But because they're so closely aligned in certain areas, there was some concern about duplication of campus sites. This eliminates that concern from our two colleges. So with that, we recommend approval of the agreement.
Any questions for Vice Chancellor Nichols?
I move approval.
Thank you. Regent Thomas to approve, Regent Ferris to second. Any further discussion? This requires simply a roll call vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now the Chancellor. We have a name request, which is very exciting.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair. Upon the unanimous recommendation of a campus committee appointed in compliance with the TBR policy on the naming of buildings and facilities, a request was forwarded to us from President Wise at Pellissippi State to name the Strawberry Plains campus building in honor of Jenny and Randy Boyd. Jenny and Randy Boyd's financial contribution to the Pellissippi State Foundation has exceeded $1 million. The Boyds made the contribution to Pellissippi State's East Knoxville County campus, because they saw the potential to repurpose a long unused facility and to improve access to educational opportunities for thousands of students. I think you all know this, but Randy Boyd has great passion for community colleges and education, and an example of his passion is his participation in both in terms of personal energy, but also significant financial contribution to Tennessee Achieves. Tennessee Achieves began as Knox Achieves in 2008 as an initiative to increase access to community colleges serving the greater Knoxville region, and because of its success, Knox Achieves was charged with the task of expanding the program statewide. Randy is not only Tennessee Achieves' largest donor, he chairs its board and travels extensively throughout the state to secure additional donations to underwrite its expansion. And I would add that if the governor's initiatives are approved, what started as Knox Achieves and became Tennessee Achieves is now going to become the Tennessee Promise. So, Madam Chair, it's my recommendation that the Strawberry Plains campus building at Pellissippi State be named the Jenny and Randy Boyd Building.
Very good. Thank you. Motion to approve. Regent Varlin, Regent Freeman, second. Any further discussion, comments? We all know Randy well and think the world of him.
In addition to everything that Randy Boyd has done for our state, he is in our community in Knoxville. He and Jenny both are constantly supporting local and regional community things. He is just a wonderful asset to our community in Knoxville as well as our state. So it is absolutely appropriate that this would be named after he and Jenny.
Well said. Any further discussion? If not, we'll call for an enthusiastic voice vote on this to approve the naming in honor of the Boyds. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Well done. President Wise, do you have any further comments you would like to make?
Madam Vice Chair and members of the board, I'll just say thank you for approving this most appropriate recognition for Jenny and Randy Boyd. As the Chancellor mentioned, their generous contribution allowed Pellissippi State to open a campus in East Knox County on Strawberry Plains Pike. I'm happy to inform you that this will allow partnership programs between Pellissippi State Community College and Knox County Schools and the TCAT in Knoxville to be offered for students who live in that surrounding area. So you will all receive an invitation to the naming ceremony later this spring, and you have a standing invitation to stop by and see the great things that are going to go on in the Jenny and Randy Boyd building.
Very good, thank you. And I think we'll be on your campus this fall as well, is that right?
You will. Look forward to it.
Thank you very much. I am going to flip the last two items and call first on Regent Varlin for our resolution of appreciation for Director Rick Brewer.
Yes, thank you very much.
And I believe, Danny, before you start, that Mrs. Brewer is with you today as well? Very good. Thank you, Jan, for being with us. There you go.
All right. Well, it's my pleasure and privilege today to recognize Mr. Rick Brewer, and I'd like to read the resolution of appreciation. Whereas Mr. Rick Brewer has faithfully served the Tennessee College of Applied Technology, Hohenwald, as director since 1992, and whereas he is a native of Tennessee and graduated with a master's degree in educational administration supervision from Memphis State University in 1975 and received his EDS degree in educational administration supervision from the University of North Alabama in 1983. And whereas he taught biology and science at Haywood County High School in Brownsville, Tennessee from 1973 to 1977, served as principal of Frank Hughes High School in Clifton, Tennessee from 1977 to 1979, taught science and math at Waynesboro Middle School from 1980 to 1982, served as vocational director of Wayne County Vocational Center in Waynesboro, Tennessee from 1982 to 1986. Was elected as superintendent of Wayne County Schools and served from 1986 to 1988. Served as principal of Hickman County High School from 1988 to 1991 and began his career in the Tennessee Board of Regents Systems with his appointment as director of the now Tennessee College of Applied Technology, Hohenwald, January 1st, 1992, and served until January 15, 2014, providing over 40 years of service in the field of education in Tennessee. And whereas he was instrumental in establishing instructional service facilities in London, Waynesboro, Columbia, Mount Pleasant, and most recently, Northfield at Spring Hill to meet the growing need in outlying areas by creating relationships and partnerships with area hospitals, school systems, and industries. Whereas he increased the number of programs by opening computer operations technology, surgical technology, electromechanical, green jobs technology, and early childhood education. Established dual enrollment partnerships with 9 area high schools, and increased special industry training availability through multiple programs. And whereas he has served in numerous leadership roles with the Tennessee Board of Regents to include serving as interim director at TCAT Crump in 1999 in conjunction with his directorship at Hohenwald, serving on the TCAT Directors Executive Subcouncil from 1997 to 2001, from 2004 to 2005, and from 2008 to 2010, and as chair for Cosmetology Curriculum Committee, other various ad hoc committees. And whereas he was a member of the South Central Workforce Investment Board, SDA 10, Chamber of Commerce member in Lewis, Hickman, Wayne, Perry, Lawrence, and Maury counties, Lewis County Commissioner, and member of American Technical Education Association. And whereas he was instrumental in promoting the legislation that changes the names of the Tennessee Technology Centers to the Tennessee Colleges of Applied Technology. And whereas he shall be missed by fellow colleagues, faculty, staff, students, and community leaders, and alumni of the Tennessee College of Applied Technology, Hohenwald. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the members of the Tennessee Board of Regents wish to recognize the outstanding career of Mr. Rick Brewer and express appreciation for his superb leadership.
Rick, I'm going to hold you up for just a second. We need a motion.
I'll make a motion
Second, Regent Freeman, thank
At least you got to stand up.
That's right.
All
That's
got to
right.
stand up and
Once
stretch a
again,
bit.
an enthusiastic, all in favor? Okay, all right, now, one more time. There we
Okay,
go.
all right.
The
Chancellor
podium is
Morgan.
yours, and could Jan
Jan?
stand for us as well?
Jen back here.
Thank you. We're
Yeah,
so
she's
glad
mother
you're
of my
here.
6 children,
Oh.
16 grandchildren, which we had to shuffle the schedule today, to pick them up from school, but all that's very irrelevant right now, okay? I would just, Chancellor Morgan, and the Board of Regents, 22 years ago, I thought I died and gone to educational heaven, to be honest with you. This was the job that I wanted from the time that I found out about it. I was superintendent of schools. Oh, my goodness, you know what? When I walked in, a week after that, I had no sports programs, no cafeterias, and no busing. And I said, oh, my goodness, what a wonderful job. What a wonderful job, in education. Didn't think it existed. But then, of course, it all kicked in, and we started working with business and industry, and that's what drives our train, business and industry. That's what makes us important right there. And for us to recognize that since the 60s, we have done one basic thing, just one basic thing, and that's train the workforce. That's all that we've done. We've got 50 welding jobs today right around us we cannot field, and we're putting out welders every day. These are just the jobs that, if you open your book up, you'll see a picture of these people in your book today. It's so important that we understand where we came from. There's 3 men who, I have addressed Dr. Otis Floyd, Rich Rhoda, who left just a minute ago. I have addressed Charles Smith, Chancellor Charles Smith, Chancellor Charles Manning, and now John Morgan for 22 years. Those are the ones that we've talked with about this very thing today. State Air Vocational Technical School, we finally convinced in 92, 93, in that area when the BEP program came on, education started getting important again in the state of Tennessee. Here we go. We can change our name now, Tennessee Technology Centers. And then in their wisdom, in our ultimate wisdom, we put college in our name. Tennessee College of Applied Technology. Now we don't have to explain it every time we write a grant and send it to Washington. We are a college. We don't have to write another dissertation to explain what we actually do down here. They're just people, though, that set the stage. Just look inside of just look inside. You know who did this? J. Howard Wharf. J. Howard Wharf did this right here. Governor Ellington got him to do this. He was the Commissioner of Education from 63 to 71. He was a neighbor down the road. Little fella in statue, smoked a cigar, but buddy, did he get things done. Did he get things done. Had no children. So all the wharf buildings across the state, when you see wharf written on, it's J. Howard Wharf. A man of high integrity, hardworking, and was recognized by governors. Now, not only governors, but when they did Columbia State, and I'm sorry that she's not here, I read that Lady Bird Johnson and the president came down that day and was there with. Why? Because Howard Johnson asked them to. Howard Wharf asked them to. Now, that's something, folks. That's what kind of people that set this system up, that made us so important. I guess, as you see, it's very passionate. It's late in the day. There's people I just want to thank. Mr. Wharf is one of them. Tommy Hall's another one. With his Mississippi drawl, Tommy Hall could come in and he set a vision for us, and we changed our name. On this board, I want to say somebody years ago, Maxine Smith and Miss Jane Kisber. They brought us to the table. These people brought us to the table, and we became important throughout the years. Keith McCord, Jack Fishman, Fran Markham, all of these. I want to thank 2 people particularly, Greg Duckett and Bob Thomas on this board, for having common sense when I needed common sense to prevail. And I just want you to know that, okay? I didn't see in the as-if there a while ago, I didn't see Director Emeritus. Did y'all put that on? Did y'all put that on me like you did Ralph Robbins? Ralph went out here thinking he had it. He was just telling me about it in the back there, and I said, "Oh my goodness, Ralph, you done got that?" I said, well, I'm just joking, of course. James King, the King James version of everything is what we've got now. I'm sorry, James King version. I'm sorry. Hey, I was supposed to be last anyway, you know, and I was fixing to say, well, the good Lord, you know, it's just one of my things that I'm going to be. Last shall be first, first shall be last. So, and I was going to say the James King version, but I've already messed that up anyway. So, Bob Wallace, Carol Puryear, Lynn, Carol, all the ones that are in our office. This is a team. We care about people. We care about what we do. Look in this booklet. See the pictures, multiply that times 30,000, and you will see what we do every day. Along with my wife putting up with me, I do thank each and every one of you for the last 22 years with this system, 18 in the secondary system, 22 years here. And I just woke up one morning and I said, 40 years is enough. Let's turn it over to somebody else. And I know the school. I came by the school today. You could not. Now, I've been retired since January 15th, so let me say. You couldn't get in the parking lot. They were all the way out to the road this morning as I came by. Something was going on. I don't know what it was, but these schools are touching the lives of the common people. I understand that. And then not so common people, too. We have a lot of people with degrees coming back, retraining, getting back in the saddle, getting the new technologies that are brought. Thank y'all so much. Thank you for volunteering, every one of you. Thank you. You put a lot into this. Greg, Bob, again, the Brewer family thanks you. Thank y'all very much. Thank you.
One more time. You have brightened our day with that very heartfelt presentation. So exactly, it's very exciting. Educational heaven. I'm going to remember that one for a long time. And to you and Jan, you will always be #1 in our book. Thank you very much. I understand. Are you rolling down the road any on that with your new motorcycle jacket these days?
Yes, Yellowstone here just as soon as the weather clears up.
Oh, very good. All right, just be safe, but enjoy. That's wonderful. Okay. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, Regent Ferris.
I move we adjourn.
No. No.
Can't do that?
Oh.
All right, I guess not.
No, I'm going to overrule you. Single-handed. Oh, we have one more important resolution this afternoon for someone else about whom we care very deeply. Regent Thomas, would you do the honors?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As Rick said, the last shall be first. And so I'm proud, and it's a real privilege to read this resolution in appreciation for the service of Regent John Steve Copeland of the Board of Regents. Whereas Dr. Steve Copeland was appointed by Governor Phil Bredesen to represent the 6th Congressional District on August 25, 2009, and served until February 18, 2014. And whereas Regent Copeland contributed greatly while serving as a member of the Committee on Personnel and Compensation and the Committee on Tennessee Colleges of Applied Technology. And whereas as a member of the Personnel and Compensation Committee, Regent Copeland not only promoted numerous policy changes, but also advocated for compensation increases for faculty and staff, supported revisions of institution compensation plans, sponsored new compensation plans and their implementation for presidents, directors, executives, and system office staff. And whereas believing that one of the most important responsibilities of a regent is to hire devoted and compassionate leaders for our institutions, during his tenure, he faithfully dedicated time and energy to serve on the presidential search committees for Tennessee Tech University, the Presidential Search Committee for Volunteer State Community College, the Presidential Search Committee for Pellissippi State Community College, and the Director Search at the Tennessee College of Applied Technology at Livingston. And whereas once the chosen leaders for these institutions were in place, he continued to support and uphold them in the community and throughout the time of his service on the board. And whereas Regent Copeland, in his position as a business leader within the Putnam County area, continuously promoted strong business relationships with our institutions and the community of that region. And whereas the Tennessee Board of Regents system is a more efficient and respected system of higher learning because of his devotion to the success of students, faculty, staff, and alumni of Regents institutions. And whereas Regent Copeland is a civic-minded, public-spirited individual with great wisdom who faithfully committed himself to the welfare of the Tennessee Board of Regents system and Tennessee higher education. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Tennessee Board of Regents expresses its sincere appreciation to Regent Copeland for his years of service rendered and leadership afforded to the Tennessee Board of Regents. And, Madam Chairman, I do move that we approve this resolution, and following a second, I have one or two more comments.
Absolutely.
I'll second.
Okay.
Second by Regent Ferris.
All right, thank you.
Excuse me.
Oh, please, any
You want
discussion?
to vote? Well, any
You wanna vote,
discussion,
and then we
right.
can-
No,
okay.
I got to know Regent Copeland much better after he got appointed to this board. He, as opposed to some of us on this board, didn't speak very often and didn't ask a lot of questions. Now, we have some board members that ask more questions than others, and that's good. That's good. But whenever Regent Copeland spoke, it meant a lot. It was a very important question or very important comments, and his wisdom through the years, I think, has been invaluable to service on this board. And I'm sorry, Regent Freeman, but I didn't mean to take a dig at you at all. But no, and thank you. But I asked Regent Copeland to attend today and to ask him to make a few comments. And Regent Copeland, would you please go forward?
May we have a motion pending.
Oh,
no,
excuse
that's
me, we
all right.
didn't
No,
vote.
no.
Excuse me.
Before you speak, let's have one more. Oh, thank you. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. Regent Copeland, the floor is yours. Oh, here we go.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. And Regent Thomas, I hope to get a chance to explain to you why I seldom ever asked questions when I was on the board, but I think the explanation will be quite clear as to why I did not. First of all, I wanted to thank the chair and the board for the resolutions and in particular the comments that you made, Bob. You are a good friend. I've known Bob's wife a lot longer than him, not in any personal way, but she and I... She and I was involved with some fundraising over the year for another one of those governors a few years ago.
I'm a little sensitive.
At any rate, I wanted to come down here today for several reasons, and I'll be very brief and to the point. One of those is to congratulate my fellow cook vegan, Johnny Stykes, for his appointment. Johnny is one of the most successful business individuals in the Upper Cumberland, in fact, and maybe even the state. And he's well respected and admired by most of the cook vegans that I know. And I think because of his experience in construction, he'll bring great value to this board, and particularly with the technological centers involved with, because all those individuals work for you, I'm sure. After it became public knowledge that he was being appointed, I called Johnny to congratulate him, and he just began to ask me some questions. And I said, you know, about the board, and I said, well, one of the things I really appreciate, and it's not any secret that most board appointments come because of some affiliation with whatever administration is there. But you will never, ever perceive that on our board. It just doesn't happen. Regardless of the political background, this board is way above that, and I'm not sure that's true all across the state. But since the Bible's been mentioned, I will mention something that the discussion with Regent Reynolds, I called her a few weeks ago or a month ago or two or something, expressing my appreciation of our governor and the decisions he was making. I just thought he was doing a great job. And all of a sudden, she made the comment, she said, "Steve, are you about to switch?" And then the phone went dead. And so anyway, she called me back in a couple of minutes. She said, "Steve, you didn't hang up on me, did you?" I said, No. She said, "Well, what happened?" I said, "Well, you've heard of divine intervention. The Lord just stepped in. He caught me in a weak. You caught me in a weak moment, and He stepped in. Be sure I didn't say something I shouldn't." But anyway, having said that, I want to share I think to get to the essence of what I want to say today, I best can do that by telling you a conversation I had some 6 weeks ago. I happened to be checking into the Hermitage, and there's an area up there where they have meetings, and there was a legislative group that I guess at the end of the day were meeting, and I happened to recognize 2 or 3 of them and got into a conversation with them. And this is not to big hat you, Chancellor Morgan, but this is just what the conversation was. Somehow in the meeting, your name came up, and one of the legislators said, "You know, I've been on the Hill north of 20 years, and I can tell you what I believe and many others down here believe, that it didn't matter if we were having hearings or meetings or whatever. When John Morgan walked through the door, everyone knew the smartest person in the room just arrived." Now, that is a nice compliment, but it even goes on beyond that, because I began to agree with him and say, well, we kind of feel that way about him at the Board of Regents. We kind of feel like when he walks in, he knows more than everyone else. And Chancellor, another legislator spoke up and said, "Well, you know," he didn't say darn, he said something else. He said he should look good. He's got the best support staff of any board or committee in the state of Tennessee. They make him look good. And I thought, I agree with that. And in fact, if I really believe it might be presumptuous of me, but I think I could speak for the other board members and say they agree with you that we have the best support staff in the state. In fact, Dale or Dave, maybe even you all would agree with you that you're the best in the state. I think you are. And I thought that was a good way for me to say what I feel about you and about our staff. And I also want to make the comment about the presidents of our universities and our community colleges and our directors of the technological centers. It's just awesome, the job they do in higher education. And I think the speaker before me just expressed the excitement that he and others feel about delivering education and training people in post-secondary education. So with that, my final comment would say it's been an honor and a privilege for me to serve on this board. I feel like I've left here knowing a lot more about higher education than I did when I walked through the door. And Bobby, the reasons I didn't ask a lot of questions, I come to realize that with Chancellor Morgan and the staff that we have, there wasn't a lot to ask. They pretty much anything you come up with done gone through their mind multiple times. So it didn't seem to be necessary to me. It wasn't because I was shy, just because I didn't think it served any purpose. But having said that, my final statement would be is that I walk away from here, I feel like many of you are my personal friends, and that's important to me. And I truly believe that each of you serve with an honesty of purpose, if you will. You're here because you truly care about this state and about our young people and about educating them, and that's important. And I hope that if any of you are coming through Cookville sometime, you'll stop and I'll either buy you lunch or share a glass of wine with you, whatever the case may be. But thank you, and again, I truly have enjoyed serving in this capacity.
Thank you. If you
Good
would
luck.
remain. The Chancellor and I have one small token on behalf of the board to present to you for your service.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you. You're great. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Promise not to drink it on the way
I suspect it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Regent Copeland, you are amazing. And watching your friendship with Regent Thomas has been a treat in and of itself. And the heart that you have, the passion you have for this mission has touched all of us. So we're just proud to know you. Thank you very much. Well, folks, we've had a busy day. We've talked about our customers, the most important piece of what we do. We've honored some incredible folks who have lifted our spirits and given us examples to emulate going forward. Chancellor, any closing announcements from your end?
I had a couple more slides I wanted to. No, I just one. Okay, fair enough. It's a draw.
Well done.
I would just like to say one more time thank you to Ashley and to the students who are here with us today. That was a very incredible opportunity for us, so thank you again. And with that, I appreciate everyone being here.
2 quick housekeeping announcements for our regents. There is an evaluation sheet in blue in front of you. If you would take a moment to fill that out before your departure. This is new to us so that we have a chance to obtain some feedback on our meetings and hopefully continue to improve things. Our June quarterly meeting is at Tennessee State University, once again right here in Nashville on June 19 and 20. Is there any other business, any other announcements? Hearing none, well done. Thank you for the camaraderie and good work. Everybody be safe going home. All the best. We are adjourned.